Hello, bonjour, namaste, salam alaikum, marhaba. It's followed by more than a billion people today, is the world's fastest growing religion and will soon be the world's largest. The 1.2 billion Muslims make up approximately 1/4 of the world's population. In the world where religious community is increasing, there is a need to address challenges in the modern era, how to live together within a religious community. Major religions in the world include Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, Jews, Taoists, and Islam is shaping world religious majority. Hence, religious harmony is what is needed the most in order to combat misunderstanding on religious issues among people. Islam is a complete way of life which prohibits intervening in the belief and practices of other religions and seeks to preserve the customs, honor, and property of every individual, irrespective of his or her religion. As a universal religion, Islam teaches love and sympathy for all humanity. The Quran itself suggests a way of living peacefully together despite our differences. If God had willed, he could have made you a single community, but he desired to test you in what he has given you. So compete with one another in good deeds. You will all return to God and he will inform you regarding the things wherein you used to disagree. Multiculturalism in Islam is not new, but rather began with the advent of Islamic revelation. Respect and inclusiveness have for a long period of time been the subject of discussion. Today, multiculturalism is reflected in several forms, including religious sermons, khutbahs, delivered during the every Friday prayer. Khutbahs seek to educate Muslims on many social and moral issues, including living together in a harmonious multicultural society. Saying this, I pass on to Dr. Gautam Ghosh, our secretary. We will play. Yeah.
There is a pre-recorded speech. I thank each and everyone individually for joining this mind-blowing session. I thank Dr. Imam Umar Ahmed. I thank each and everyone. I thank Gypsy Ghosh especially for coining this, idea of holding a panel, international panel on Islam. I also thank Hoimanti Bhattacharya for her relentless effort in making this program a grand success as I find it today. So there is a pre-recorded speech which I have. Let the organizers play it right now.
Can you see? Can you all see? Can you all see?
Yeah.
Yes.
Displayed.
Namaskar, Assalamu alaikum. At the outset, I thank Mrs. Gypsy Ghosh, our president of India-Canada Consortium, for coining the idea of holding this international panel on Islam with eminent personalities. I also thank Hoimanti, our vice president, for her relentless support. Well, today's the title, Insightful Islam, speaks the most. Yes, Islam, as I understand, is truly insightful. Islam provides guidance for all aspects of life, individual and social, material and moral, economic and political, legal and cultural, and national and international. As time is short, I will only talk on how much insightful Islam is regarding anti-racism. The Prophet Muhammad was one of the first to articulate anti-racism as a moral ideal and political goal. Islam forbids racism. This is based on the following points derived from the verses of Quran. In Surah 5.8, it stated, where a racism calls for favoring one's own ethnic or racial group at the expense of others, the Quran prohibits looking down and insulting other ethnic groups while racism, on the other hand, condones them. Surah 38.76 also tells that I am better than he is. You created me from fire and him from clay. In his sermon known as the farewell address, Muhammad outlined the basic religions and ethical ideals of Islam and religion he began preaching in the early 17th century. Racial equality was one of them. All humans are descended from Adam and Eve, said Muhammad in his last known public speech. There is no superiority of an Arab over a non-Arab, or a non-Arab over an Arab, and no superiority of a white person over a black person, or a black person over a white person, except on the basis of personal piety and righteousness. No other religion has so empathetically and persistently in word and action pointed out the oneness of God and equality of men. The Prophet of Islam said, the white man is not above the black man nor the master. The difference of race, language and culture to Islam simply is difference on canvas. As time is short and as there are so many scholars in the panel who have profound knowledge on Islam, I now prefer to pass this to our Vice President, Hoimonti.
Oh, no, you can keep going.
Thank you, Dr. Gautam Ghosh. Thank you so much for your insightful, this first introduction of this event. Now we will go forward to our next speaker, Dr. Imam Umair Ahmed, and he is the Chief Imam for All India Imam Organization, a representative body of 500,000 Imams of India. We request you to begin. Thank you.
बहुत शुक्रिया. Thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آमीन. मैं सबसे पहले शुक्रिया करता हूँ हमारे डॉक्टर गौतम घोष जी का कि जिन्होंने इस तरह का ये आज इनसाइटफुल इस्लाम का आज ये स्टार्ट किया है. और मैं तमाम जितने भी हमारे जो पैनलिस्ट हैं, स्कॉलर्स हैं, मैं उनको भी सबको सलाम पेश करता हूं. मैं सबसे पहले आप लोगों को सलाम करता हूं. अस्सलामु अलैकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातहू. मैं सबसे पहले सलाम इसलिए किया कि सलाम जो है, मैंने सलाम किया अस्सलाम वालेकुम, कि अल्लाह ताला ईश्वर आपको सबको सलामत रखे. मैंने सबसे पहले आपके लिए दुआ करी. आपने कहा वालेकुम अस्सलाम, अल्लाह ताला आपको भी सलामत रखे. आपने भी मुझे दुआ दी. तो इस्लाम तो पीस का मजहब है, सलामती का मजहब है, जो सबसे पहले सलाम करके एक दूसरे को दुआ देता है, एक दूसरे की भलाई की बात करता है. तो मैं आज तमाम अपने जो मेरे पैनलिस्ट हैं, जो बड़े बड़े स्कॉलर्स हैं, और मैं उनसे उम्मीद करूंगा कि आज वो इस्लाम के बारे में बहुत तफसीली बात होगी. क्योंकि मैंने आपको बताया था कि मेरे टाइमिंग की मजबूरी है, क्योंकि मेरी 9 बजे आज मेरा नमाज का समय शुरू हो गया है, लोग वेट कर रहे हैं, लेकिन मुझे स्टार्टिंग करना था. और मैं आप लोगों के लिए दुआ करता हूँ कि ये जितने भी हमारे बहुत अच्छे स्कॉलर्स हैं, मुझे मालूम है, और ये इस्लाम पर बहुत अच्छा बोलेंगे, मैं ऐसी उम्मीद भी करता हूँ. और आप लोग इसको कंटिन्यू करें, आगे बढ़ें. मेरी दुआएं आपके साथ हैं. और यही इस्लाम है कि इस्लाम का पैगाम भी यही है कि हम सबको एक रहना चाहिए, प्यार से रहना चाहिए, मोहब्बत से रहना चाहिए. क्योंकि इस्लाम और का माने ही पीस है, तो पीस तो सबके लिए होना चाहिए. तो हम तो सबके लिए दुआ कर रहा हूँ. अभी नमाज में जाऊंगा, सबके लिए दुआ करूंगा कि अल्लाह ताला सबको खुशियां दे, खूब तरक्की हो. और आपका ये जो प्रोग्राम आप जो शुरू किए हैं, अल्लाह उसमें कामयाबी दे, जो मकासद अल्लाह उसको पूरा करे. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. थैंक यू वंस अगेन सभी लोगों के, मेरे पैनलिस्टों को भी, डॉक्टर गौतम घोष को भी, सबको मैं सलाम करता हूं और शुक्रिया अदा करता हूं। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। वाखिर दावाना अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन।
इंशाल्लाह। थैंक यू फॉर ज्वाइनिंग। आपकी प्रेयर्स की बाद अगर आप एक बार फिर से ज्वाइन करने सकते हैं तो बहुत मेहरबानी होगा। और आपसे कुछ सुनना चाहते हैं सारे तमाम लोग, और इसलिए अगर आप कुछ टाइम अगर आपकी देने सकते हैं आपकी नमाज की बात, तो बहुत इसमें सारे दुनिया सुनने चाहते हैं आपकी तो कुछ बात आपसे।
डेफिनेटली आई विल ट्राई माय बेस्ट।
थैंक यू।
थैंक यू सो मच। थैंक यू सो मच। गॉड ब्लेस।
In progress.
Modi, you can.
So can we go forward for the next speaker now?
Yes.
Okay. So our next speaker is from Canada. She is, we like to welcome her, Kubra Mir. She is the president of Canadian Council of Muslim Women in Durham region from 2019 to present. She also manages group blood donation in the local Muslim community for Canada Blood Services. Platinum Jubilee Pin Award she got from Mark Holland, MP for Ajax 2022. She also she is an International Women's Day awarded from Peter Bethlen Flavy, Ontario Minister of Finance and MPP for Pickering in 2020. Also, I like to tell about her that International Women's Day Award from Honorable Omar Al Gavra, Minister of Transportation and Member of Parliament for Mississauga, has awarded to Kubra Mir on 2021. So we like to Kubra to start her speech, and we like to welcome.
Is she here?
She is on.
Yeah, I'm here.
I
Thank
saw
you.
her.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen, just 2 seconds,
Yes.
okay? Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction, Gypsy Ghosh. Okay, a second. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to repeat this one. Okay, so thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Kubra, and I was born in Bangalore, India, and I moved to Canada when I was 2 years old. I am a volunteer for the Canadian Council of Muslim Women. I am a president, as we mentioned earlier. So Canadian Council of Muslim Women, it's a 40-year-old nonprofit organization, and we have charitable status. So our founder is Lil Fallman. She was born in Canada, and she was the first Muslim woman to earn a PhD in educational psychology, the first Muslim woman in Canada to serve on a public school board. And she was also the first Muslim woman in North America to work as a university chaplain. She was given the Order of Canada in 2002 for her contributions to the Muslim community and for her work on behalf of abused women. Every year, there is a scholarship given in her name to encourage other Muslim women to follow her footsteps. So today, I want to share a bit of the history of Muslims and South Asians immigrating to Canada to help you to understand some of the laws that have shaped immigration and some of the cultural biases that exist today. So the first Muslim immigrants to Canada were from Scotland. James and Agnes Love, they were here in 1851, and their son was the first Muslim to be born in Canada. According to the records, there were 4 Muslims in Canada at 1851. By 1871, that number increased to 13. These early Muslims came from Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, Jordan, and Turkey. So the early Muslims were involved with the first trade. So they moved to Alberta, which is basically Western Canada, where land was cheap and labor was needed. Some worked on the building of the railway and others searched for gold. They worked as peddlers and opened general stores like this one. And they worked with indigenous people as fur traders and also learned to speak some of the languages. These early Muslims had their names changed by the immigration officials who didn't understand different names. So the next large group of Muslims who came to Canada were Black. They've been here for many years as part of the slave trade, but their existence was never documented. The book that we see here was, maybe I'll just, you can see better. Okay, so this book that we see was written, it's an autobiography or a biography written by a slave who came to Canada from the US as part of the Underground Railway. So Canada became a country in 1867, and then they created laws to restrict and regulate Chinese immigration. So these Chinese people came over to help build the railway. And so they were afraid that, that they would come and take away jobs and establish families in Canada. So this is one of a really bad law. So the next policy that Canada implemented was in 1869. They wanted people to come to Canada, but what they were pushing for was people to come from Europe. So this policy was in place. And so South Asian immigration started in 1897. Some troops had come from Hong Kong and Malay, and they visited Canada, and they had gone to see the Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee, and they started, saying, okay, let's come to Canada. So the first South Asians started arriving, so about 30 of them, right, in 1903 as immigrants. And they came from Hong Kong and other British territories. And many of these early settlers were Sikh. So the Immigration Act was overhauled in 1910. This new law gave power to the government to exclude people, especially South Asians. And this restriction, was lifted a bit in 1910 when they allowed families to be reunified. So women and children were allowed to come, but actually only 11 showed up. So this made it very difficult for people in India to enter Canada because it was a long and very lengthy progress. So this picture, it was taken outside, so it's from a boat, a Japanese boat that came to Canada. And these were Indians who were trying to immigrate to Canada in 1914. This boat was detained in BC for a few months. And what happened was they were told to return to India. And they were deported because they did not have a continuous journey. Like if they had stopped, they were not allowed to come, and they didn't have enough money. So when these poor people went back to India, there was a riot and about 22 people were killed. Okay, so by 1931, there are about 700 Muslims living in Canada, and many were from Syria and Lebanon. The picture here of Hilwi, she came to Saskatchewan, which is a province in Canada, and she came with her husband as a fur trader, who was a fur trader. And then in 1930, she convinced the local mayor for land, and then she got Muslims and Canadians across Canada to donate money, and she was able to open the first mosque in Canada. So this is in 1938. Okay, so by 1947, thankfully, South Asians were given the right to vote in 1947. In this photograph, there's a gentleman here, a Sikh gentleman, and this is in BC. So by 1951, the system had changed a bit. So they were allowing 150 Indians to come, 100 Pakistanis, and 15 Ceylonese were allowed to immigrate to Canada. So this gentleman was the first politician in Canada who was Muslim. He came from Lebanon as a fur trader. He became very successful and he was elected. He also changed his name to Peter Baker. Okay, so by 1960, the Immigration Act in Canada changed. It was based on a point system where individuals were given grades according to their educational level. So at this point, this is where my in-laws came in. So in the 1960s, they came over as scholarship recipients. But again, this is when, immigration of South Asians started happening. So, okay, so this is a picture from my husband's side. So on the left, wearing a bow tie, is my husband's maternal uncle. And this is a photograph that was taken when Malcolm X had come to Canada, and he had just come back for Hajj. And so the pilgrimage in Mecca. So he was invited to speak at the first Toronto Mosque, and he was given, you see the print he's holding, that's a calligraphy print that he was given. And unfortunately, shortly after this visit, he was assassinated. And but anyways, this was a very historic photograph. And on a personal note, okay, to share my own journey, my father came in 1969 in Canada. He was able to find a job within a few days. And then my mom came, and with my sister and myself. And then my parents had to navigate a new culture and deal with Canadian winters. My father was educated in convent schools, so he had no issues with English, but my mom struggled with it. We lived in a community where there were very few people of color. There was a Sikh family, a Black family, and ourselves. And so during this time that I was growing up in the 70s, there was a huge backlash against South Asians and Muslims. We would often hear, "Go home, Paki." And, I was beaten up, and my mom, she was also mocked for walking, for having long Black hair. It was very common for South Asian women to have the long Black hair, right? And so now what we have seen is the population of Canada has changed. And today there's much more understanding of other religions and cultures. And I'm very thankful to Canada for the opportunities it has provided for me and my family. So today there are over 1 million individuals who identify as Muslims. And this is a huge change from when it was about 4 people in 1854. I would, I think it's really important for us to share these stories and to understand the history and the struggles of immigrants like my parents. And if you would like to learn more about Muslim pioneers in Canada, I would recommend reading this book. And I would really like to thank the organizers for having this event, having it cross countries. That's amazing. And thank you for holding this session and for creating awareness. Thank you very much.
so much, Kubra. It was really insightful and so nicely you explained with the slides. I hope everyone enjoyed and got a really good knowledge about this history. So thank you for joining and sharing your knowledge. Now we like to welcome Mr. Muhammad Iqbal to our panel today. Mr. Muhammad Iqbal's mother of his father was from Baghdad, whose family, after having migrated from Iraq and settled in Afghanistan more than 700 years back, and she was an Afghan tall Pathan lady of reddish bright complexion. In 1943, from canteen contractor of British soldiers at Chittagaon, his father joined the British Royal Air Force and died on the 9th June 1969 on a road accident of a tragic car accident at the highway of Drig Road Air Base at Karachi. His life started with struggle with a simple qualification of BSc, which is pre-engineering, from 1972, carrying the entire role of the load of his family. He was the former benefactor of the International Association of Sufism, San Francisco, as the panel speaker too, as president of the Central Committee of the Anjuman-e-Rahmaniya Mania Mahvandaria of Nazbandar Darbar Sharif. He rendered his service from 1988 to 2003, where he had played a remarkable role to make his Darbar popular in Darbar Mania. He played a role as an advisor of SARS Human Rights Foundation and also as a speaker of Election Monitoring Forum. By nature, he is a philanthropist and believes in solitary, deep meditation searching for divine ideology of length. Thank you so much for joining us today. We like to welcome Mr. Muhammad Iqbal.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Has been spoken about me. Since there is a time constraint, I will straightway switch over my deliberation of speech on the insightful Islam. This is a very sensitive subject, as I say. When we talk about insightful, it means something which has a depth of knowledge, wisdom, and that relates with Islam. So somebody who has really attained real proficiency and the depth about Islam, he is the right person who can say about Islam what really Islam was. With my own humble way of thinking that I have achieved, and I have through my research what I have said, even by going through the Hindu scriptures, I respect Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucius, Judaism, and Christianity. Having gone through the holy books there, and then not that as a Muslim I'm saying, but just as a common man, I have found that in Quran, Almighty Allah has revealed something scientific-based facts about 1500 years back, which today, during the last 100 years or maybe 200 years, the honorable scientists have come to a conclusion in a pivotal point that what Quran told 1500 years back, today practically through their research-based thoughts, ideological research, they are finding the truth. Let me give you a very simple example about the human birth. How a child was born in the womb of his beloved mother. A Quran 1500 years back has exactly told in Surah Mu'minun that how a child was born, how his formation was there. It is a fascinating example of Quranic style in the presentation of scientific facts. In an eye-opening manner can be found in verse 96, which refers to the creation of man from alaq, that which clings within the mother's womb. As I just said, mother's womb. This is what the Quran is saying. The successive phases in the development of human being from an embryonic stage to a full-grown fetus have been mentioned in Surah Al-Mu'minun. If we really go through the relevant verses of Surah Al-Mu'minun, mashallah, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 1500 years back have already very clearly stated the formation of human beings. If I start talking about Quranic facts that came exactly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which was revealed on Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam through the message which was carried by angel Jibreel. So Quran has made a lot of things revealed 1500 years back. What we are today talking about the solar system, we are talking about the universal gravitational force, capital G. The Quran says exactly the same thing. Quran has revealed about the solar system, about the planets, and we talk about the Big Bang theory, what not. Exactly everything. Now today we're talking about the telescope, which is revealing that there are so many sun around and in the galaxy. And these were all told in Quran. And how the Quran says the last day, exactly we are now as the word is, I hope we pray that let there be no third world war, because it is going to be nuclear war. So I think I have been interrupted in between.
Yeah, I've muted them.
No, you
Go
have
ahead.
muted our eminent speaker as well. Can you? Sorry, we can't hear him.
Oh, no. Ask to unmute. You can unmute yourself. Please unmute.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Now
it's okay now?
Yes, it's okay now.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So I do not want to go much into depth in this because it is the Quran about which a lot of researches were made, and it was finally accepted. The Quran cannot be written by human being. It cannot be, because the verses have got such resemblance, continuity, starting from the beginning till the end. It is something of divine, and which is nothing but Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Quran, revelation Quran, this is the thought of Almighty Allah. So Allah has sent it not only for Muslims, but for the humanity, for the entire world, for all religion. So it is up to us. If we respect Quran and put our research, we are finding a lot of things. Even it has been spoken about the dead animals. It is very much written in the Quran, don't eat dead animals, because there is some sort of bacteria which, even if penetrates to the human body, that will be a great catastrophe. So what Quran is guiding us, not only this total all subject, it is speaking about the science, it is about the mankind, everything. So I thank very much to my friend Gautam Bush, whom I met, Dr. Gautam Bush, 4 years or 5 years back in Dhaka in another symposium, because he has selected such a nice subject, insightful Islam. If we talk about it, we need a lot of time, but in short, I have said, as I have been permitted, that the science which is today we are speaking, that have already been spoken 1500 years back, and that was our guidance. And as I have been introduced, my another short introduction, which please permit me to say, I am by profession and businessman industrialist in Bangladesh, and a creator of the shipbreaking industries in Bangladesh as a pioneer, which in fact came through my hands. And I was the first man to have been acknowledged when I participated by competing the Taiwan giant in the international market. And that was very much spoken in London newspaper, that Bangladesh now enters in the very large crude carriers. And in fact, I was the first man from Bangladesh to have signed contract with the United States Maritime Administration. But apart from this, I believe in Sufism, and I respect interfaith concept, and I'm a lover and a believer, respect all religions. And my theme is, which I spread, do good, don't do bad, and refrain from the activities of sin. So I thank you all. This is the dialogue, and this is the slogan that I have thrown. We need a communal harmony globally, and that is possible if we come together, if we learn the language of each other, and if we respect each other's religion. That is vitally important. Let us not say my religion is superior. No, every religion is world. Thank you very much. My message goes to all, and I thank all the sponsors to have given a chance for this. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much. Yes, it was awesome, your message that the first thing is we have to respect everyone and every religion. I really loved the way you explained the Quran as well. It was so profound from your side. I hope everyone is having the same feeling. So now we will move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Muhammad. I'm sorry. Sorry, just a minute. We are having with us Dr. Makdar Khan in the Insightful Islam panel. Dr. Khan is a professor in the Department of Political Science and International Relations at the University of Delaware. He is a non-resident scholar with the Center of Global Policy coordinating the Islam and Good
Praise the Lord.
Governance. Sorry? Okay. And he is a non-resident scholar with the Center for Global Policy coordinating the Islam and Good Governance initiative. He was the academic director of the US in the Department of National Security Institute in 2016 to 2019, and he is the academic director of the American Foreign Policy Institute, again from 2019 to 2022, at the Institute for Global Studies, UD. He was a senior non-resident fellow of the Brookings Institute from 2003 to 2008 and a senior fellow with the Center of Global Policy. He is the author of the award-winning book, Islam and Good Governance, Political Philosophy of the Asian, published in April 2019. He is also the author of several other books, and he also hosts a YouTube show called, the name is Conversations. I will share the link in our chat box. So if you want, you can watch that. So now we like to welcome Professor Khan to our panel now.
Assalamu alaikum to all of you, and thank you very much, Hemanti, for that long and tedious introduction. I also want to thank Gypsy Ghosh and Gautam Ghosh for hosting this very interesting discussion on insightful Islam. In this day and age, when we see some of the most ugly sentiments being expressed so publicly, racism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, even intolerance towards Hinduism, so openly in the public, it is really wonderful that you are hosting an event like this. While Canada is known for its multiculturalism, I just want to point out to our audience that India was a land of multiculturalism long before the West even discovered culture. So keep that in mind. We have been practicing multiculturalism for literally thousands of years in India. Today, it is very difficult to talk about an enlightened or insightful Islam, because Islam without enlightenment, Islam without insight is not Islam. So it would be oxymoronic to talk about it in that way. Nevertheless, there is a very beautiful verse in the Quran in the sixth verse of chapter 15, which basically says that God has extracted us from darkness and brought us into enlightenment. يَخْرُجُ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ. And so it is important to understand that Islam has always presented itself as a commitment to and pursuit of enlightenment and insight, and the opposite of ignorance and jahiliyyah. So having said that, I must also say that over a period of time, many different kinds of Islam have manifested, while many Muslims, for some reason that I don't understand, want to insist that there is only one Islam. Let me tell you that there is huge difference between the Islam that is manifest by the Taliban in Afghanistan and the Islam that is practiced by the Indonesians. One is profoundly intolerant and the other is incredibly embracing and all-encompassing. So there is a huge spectrum of interpretations of Islam. So much so that the Quran itself recognizes it, and the Quran says in chapter 18, verse 18 of chapter 39, that when you listen to the word of God, try to extract the most beautiful meaning from it, clearly indicating that less than beautiful meanings can be extracted from the Quran itself. So given what is happening in India, the rise of intolerance, religious conflict, hatred, call for genocides, etc., I thought I will anchor my discussion on Islam enlightened and manifestations of Islam in the context of India. And can you see this slide?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yes. So I want to begin by saying that traditionally Muslim scholars have divided the world into 2 or 3 different arenas. The first is called Darul Islam, a region where Islam is established, Islam is practiced, and some people define it even narrowly to say where Islamic law is essentially sovereign. However, the traditional scholars basically said where societies which were generally understood as Islamic and governed by Muslim rulers were Darul Islam. And then those societies which were not Islamic or Muslim were seen as Darul Harb, or the house of war. This is a very narrow, from a geopolitical perspective, understanding of the world. And then there were those who added a third category called Darul Sulah, which means that there are societies with whom Muslims can have a treaty and an alliance and a partnership. And therefore, there are 3 kinds of arenas in the world where Islam is practiced, where Islam is at war with, and then Islam is at peace with. But in the Indian context, given the long history of Islam in India and Muslim governance, India remained a very peaceful place when it came to interfaith issues, especially during the time of Emperor Akbar, and generally in the time of most of the Mughal emperors, starting with Babur until we reach Aurangzeb. So what happened was that Muslims felt the need to create another concept called Darul Aman, which is an arena of security and peace. And this concept became very profound, especially when Iran was ruled by the Safavids, who were trying to convert Iran into a Shia community, and Muslims who did not follow the official interpretations of the religion or ideology or politics were forced to leave Iran, and they all migrated to India. And this was during the time of Akbar. And there were people who were facing religious and intellectual persecutions in the Middle East also, who migrated to India. And so India became known for its tolerance and acceptance. And so therefore the term Darul Aman became quite important as a description of India. The point that I'm trying to make here is that there is a theological understanding of Islam and there is a lived experience in Islam. While Darul Aman as a concept cannot be drawn from the theological interpretations. So when you see legalistic discussions of Islam by theologians or Islamic lawyers, they often just talk about Darul Islam, Darul Harb, and maybe Darul Sulah. None of these are Quranic terms, by the way. These are terms that have emerged in Islamic literature over the period of time. And then Darul Aman, which is a consequence of description of the reality that India was, especially under the Mughals and Emperor Akbar. I will now share with you some ideas of lived Islamic experience in India, especially during the heydays of Islamic governance in India. And these ideas are clearly drawn from Islamic values, Islamic principles, some of them anchored directly in the Quran, some from the traditions of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. There are just a few of them, and they should give you an idea of the possibility of an insightful and enlightened Islam. So I've already spoken to you about Darul Aman. One of the things is that people find it surprising and sometimes even criticize the fact that many Muslim rulers of India treated Hindu majority, actually India was nearly 95% Hindu, when Muslims came and governed India in the beginning of the second millennium. They treated Hindus as dhimmis. And so there's a lot of criticism now when Islam and Muslims are being demonized. But in order to treat Muslims, Hindus as dhimmis, they had to recognize Hinduism as a religion and as Hindus as people who are of the book, as Ahl al-Kitab, because primarily dhimmis were given the status of Ahl al-Kitab. And so the fact that many Muslim dynasties provided this protectionist status to Hindus indicated that Hindus are Ahl al-Kitab. Now, there are very interesting implications for Hindus as Ahl al-Kitab. There was a very recent scholar called Humayun Kabir, who also made a systematic argument about how Hindus should be treated as Ahl al-Kitab. But it tells you that there was a genuine struggle in India for a long time to find common ground with other religious communities, not just common ground in terms of culture and language. We already know about the Ganga Jamna Tehzeeb, the shared music, shared poetry, shared cultural practices, but also to find room for the other in the theology of Islam. That is an important part. That's the important point that I want you to take, that Muslim scholars struggle. So for example, today in the US, for many years, American Muslims have struggled to redefine America from a Judeo-Christian country to an Abrahamic nation to such an extent that a lot of people now use the word Abrahamic, and so you have the Abrahamic Accords. It is an acknowledgement that Muslims, Jews, and Christians share a common theological and religious and spiritual heritage. But what it does is it excludes Hindus and Buddhists and others. So we are struggling to find a similar concept which would be very inclusive of other faiths. And so you can see that this attempt to label or treat Hindus as people of the book was an attempt by Muslim scholars to include Hindus in the same tradition, monotheistic tradition, or Abrahamic tradition that was under the rubric of people of the book. Under the period of Akbar had you could argue, a grand strategy called Sulh-e-Kul, universal peace or peace with all. And that completely and fundamentally contradicted the theological position taken by the conservative ulama of his time, who essentially insisted that Muslim rulers should invite Hindus to convert to Islam or die. Basically, that was the option. And to contradict that, he advanced this idea of Sulh-e-Kul and tried to anchor that again in Islamic theology with the help of essentially Sufi interpretations of Islam, where Sufis saw everybody as essentially a potential devotee of God. And so given the common emerging spiritual traditions of the Bhakti and Sufi traditions in India, it became much more easier to nurture a multicultural, multi-religious society, essentially a pluralistic society. It became easy for Akbar to create the kind of society that American Muslims want in America and Indian Muslims want in India. Today, Indian Muslims want a Sulh-e-Kul in India. They want India which is pluralistic, India which is inclusive, India which allows everybody to practice their religion and accepts everybody's theological and moral virtue and worth. That is what Indian Muslims today want in India. And that is what Sulh-e-Kul was essentially about. So Akbar offered to Hindus what Muslims today want Narendra Modi and RSS and Hindu majority to offer to them. So it is important to recognize that while some Muslims do criticize Akbar, they should be ashamed of themselves when they turn around and make the same demand that Hinduism today offers Sulh-e-Kul to them in India. Sulh-e-Kul was Akbar's way of generating pluralism. And of course, we also know that he came up with this idea of Deen-e-Ilahi as a religion. The word Deen-e-Ilahi was actually never used by him. He used predominantly the concept of Tawheed-e-Ilahi, that is oneness of divinity. And the idea of oneness of divinity essentially meant that all religions have the same source, and ultimately all of us are heading in the same direction. So this unity of divinity is what he was advocating as the philosophical and theological underpinning to his policy of universal peace. It is very interesting that subsequently we find that Abul Kalam Azad, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, in his interpretation of the Quran, comes up with this concept of Wahdat al-Din. And it is interesting to say that it is no different from the original idea which underpin the concept of Sulh Kul, this idea that we are all may have different ways of worshiping God, and we may have different interpretations of how to define and describe God, but ultimately all religions are one. This was a concept that even Maulana Azad brought in his commentary of the Quran, which I assume he did not expect non-Muslims to read. So this message was from a Muslim scholar and a Muslim leader to other Muslims about the unity of a religion. Religion is an important part of our society. India is a deeply religious country. We talk about the Middle East as the Holy Land. Yes, indeed, the Middle East gave two religions which have membership of more than 1 billion, which is Islam and Christianity. But India too gave two religions to the world which have more than 1 billion population, which is Hinduism and Buddhism. So given that India is the other Holy Land, it is very important for those of us in the West who have inherited the Indian tradition of multiculturalism, religious tolerance, understanding of the other, and the appreciation of the other, to share it with the citizens of the countries that we have embraced and we live in. And with that, I'll stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Khan. It was really and truly an intenseful lecture from your side. And now we will go forward. Sorry, my video was off.
Excuse me, can I just come in between for a minute, please?
Yes, please, please.
Well, as the context of India was taken by Mr. Khan, let me just come out with a clear idea what India has been doing for Muslim communities. I am an Indian. And today it's me and us who have coined this term and this program for Insightful Islam. We love each and every religion. Now, this is not for me. The name of our Prime Minister has come up, so I have to, state something which is ironical and which has taken place in India. So, at the core of his leadership, in respect for human dignity, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's single step of abolishing the triple talaq has ensured that generations of Muslim women led a better life. Likewise, his decision to allow women to proceed to Hajj without the mehram has been hailed as a major step towards their empowerment. So India, irrespective of any name, has been always a secular nation and always trying for secularism, admiring as well as loving Islam. Now, let me just go ahead and tell a little bit more. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also developed a close bond with Dargah Ajmer Sharif. The 188 toilets constructed has been helped to the devotees, particularly for the women. There has been an extensive beautification process in the dargahs. Likewise, he has done a lot of things. So there may be some, wrong connotations going around the world about Narendra Modi or any other government of India. Maybe it's going in a wrong way. But looking at the vast, demography of the population, the government of India is doing all that is possible, all that is best for the people of India, the Indian Muslims. I believe they are very happy, and everywhere there are sections of people who are unhappy. So we are trying to ascertain their unhappiness and trying to go into the depth of the matter so that all people, irrespective of their caste, creed, and religion, are happy in secular India. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gautam Ghosh. Now we will welcome Mr. Kaji Masum Akhtar, an educator, an acclaimed debater, commentator, and deservedly awarded with the 4th highest civilian award in India, that is Padma Shri Award, by the Government of India for his outstanding contribution in the field of education and literature in the year of 2020. He is probably the first ever madrasa principal who sacrificed his blood for the integrity of the nation. He fearlessly stood against the anti-national fundamentalists who fatally attacked him for introducing national anthem as the daily prayer song in Talpukur Ara Madrasa, Kolkata. Mr. Akhtar, fearlessly sharing his articles with brutal honesty against all sorts of social malpractices, hypocrisies, fundamentalism, and last but not the least, social and political corruption in more than 450 columns in well-known Bengali newspapers since 20 years. He is also a regular and prominent face in different talk shows of highly acclaimed Bengali TV channels. Other than Padma Shri, he has been recognized and awarded with many prestigious awards from different educational institutions, community, media, and government, like Shiksha Ratna Samman in 2017 for his lifetime achievement as the best principal of the state, Dronacharya Samman in 2016, Shama Prasad Samman in 2017 as social reformer by Shama Prasad Mukherjee Study Circle. We'd like to welcome today Mr. Kaji Masoom Akhtar.
Unmute, please unmute. Kaji Shaheb, please unmute.
Thank you, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Namaskar. I want to express my opinion in my mother tongue Bengali, as well as our official language Hindi, the both at a time. True wisdom of Islam, true knowledge of Islam. This is the main pillar of our discussion. According to the Quranic knowledge and the everyday practice of the Muslims are much more different in our today's world. कैसे होता है?
There's only 28 people in this conversation.
हम लोग जो काम कर रहे हैं,
And those 28
इस्लाम
will
ने
be
जो
all the
बोला है,
speakers.
इस्लाम ने जो बोला है, कुरान ने जो बात किया है, और एवरीडे लाइफ में हम लोग मुस्लिम लोग जो कर रहे हैं, इसमें डिफरेंस ज्यादा हो जाता है. कोई ऐसे बोलता है हम लोग का रिलीजियंस सुपीरियरिटी ऑफ आवर रिलीजन, जैसे हिटलर बोला था हम लोग का ट्यूडर जो जाति है ये दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा जाति है, इसलिए वर्ल्ड वार हुआ था. मुस्लिम लोग सोचता है क्या है, वो लोग का जो रिलीजियस है, वो लोग का जो कम्युनिटी है दुनिया का सबसे सेरा है, सबसे बड़ा है. तकलीफ यह है, इंटॉलरेंस यहाँ से आता है. सबको इज्जत करना, सबको दिल में बसाना, ह्यूमैनिटी का ऊपर कुछ नहीं होता है. इंसानियत पहले चाहिए, आदमी को भलाई चाहिए. जहाँ इंसानियत नहीं है, वेलफेयर मेंटेलिटी जहाँ नहीं है, वहाँ कुछ नहीं. कभी किसी रिलीजियंस ह्यूमैनिटी के ऊपर नहीं जा सकता. मगर हम लोग क्या सोच रहे हैं, हम लोग सोच रहे हैं हम लोग दुनिया से सबसे बड़ा कम्युनिटी है, बेस्ट कम्युनिटी है. हम लोग का आइडियोलॉजी दुनिया के सबसे बड़ा आइडियोलॉजी है, कंप्लीट कोड ऑफ लाइफ कुरान हम लोग बोलते हैं. मगर उसको इम्प्लीमेंटेशन कैसे होना चाहिए, ट्रू एक्सप्लेनेशन ऑफ कुरान, साइंटिफिक एक्सप्लेनेशन ऑफ कुरान हम लोग करते नहीं. नेवर गो थ्रू द true sense of Quran, true experience of Quran, scientific opinion of the Quran. हम लोग उसको डिस्टोर्टेड करता है. हम लोग का जो चिंता, जो चेतना है, इसमें तकलीफ क्या हो रहा है? हम लोग बोला जो दुनिया में जितना साइंस है वो कुरान का अंदर तो हो नहीं सकता. वो रिलीजियस किताब है. दुनिया में हर रिलीजियस किताब में कुछ ना कुछ बड़ापन है. दुनिया में जितना रिलीजियस किताब होता है सब में इंसानियत के बारे में बोला है. कोई छोटा नहीं. हम किसी को छोटा करते हैं, किसी को बड़ा करना, ये जो तरीका है ये गलत है. इसको हटाना चाहिए. और क्या चाहिए? कभी हम प्रैक्टिकल फील्ड में सोचिएगा तो जब हम लोग बड़ा है ये कैसे हम लोग ये दुनिया में क्या दिया है, ये दुनिया को हम लोग का कम्युनिटी का तरफ से क्या दिया है, इसको पहले समझना है. प्रैक्टिकल इंप्लीमेंटेशन कैसे हो रहा है. जब क्रूसेड का वॉर हुआ था, क्रूसेड वॉर यूरोप में जब रेनेसांस हुआ था, इस्लाम का इन्फ्लुएंस था. कैसे था हमको मालूम है, हम लोग को सबको जानकारी है. जो अरेबियन सिविलाइजेशन वहां से यूरोप में जो नॉलेज आया था, जो साइंटिफिक टेम्परमेंट, साइंटिफिक नॉलेज, जो लिटरेचर, जो सोच आया था, वो यूरोप में रेनेसांस में मदद किया था. ये हिस्ट्री है. कॉर्डोबा यूनिवर्सिटी, कॉन्स्टेंटिनोपल यूनिवर्सिटी, स्पेन, क्या होता था वह अरेबियन प्रोफेसर, टीचर टीच करता था, स्टूडेंट था यूरोपियन. बड़ा बड़ा जो डिस्कवर है वो मुस्लिम की तरफ से किया. अलजबरा तैयार किया. ये जो पेपर्स चाइना से जो नॉलेज को लेकर अरब पेपर जो होता है कागज दुनिया में फैला दिया था. हजारों एग्जाम्पल है. नहीं है ऐसा कुछ बात नहीं. उसके बाद क्या हुआ? अरब का भूमि से भूमि में क्या हो गया? मिट्टी का नीचे में ऑयल मिल गया. ऑयल पैसा मिल गया. लोग पढ़ाई का जो साइंस का जो चर्चा वो खत्म हो गया. मगर अपना धर्म, अपना कुरान, अपना आइडियोलॉजी का जो अहम उसको बरकरार रखा है, जारी रखा है. तकलीफ है. कुरान जो बोला है पढ़ो, इकरा पहले पढ़ो, वो पढ़ना बंद कर दिया. एजुकेशन बंद कर दिया. सिर्फ धर्म का अंदर चले जाओ. धर्म में क्या है? नमाज, रोजा, कर, हज, जकत, कलमा जो है क्या है? एवरीडे प्रैक्टिस ऑफ इस्लाम. ये बाहर का प्रैक्टिस है. ये आप किसी भी आपका जो प्रैक्टिस है पर्टिकुलर रिलीजियस प्रैक्टिस है. इसमें आपका क्या? आपका पूरा काम खत्म हो गया. अब दुनिया के लिए क्या? आप जो जिंदा है, आप जो जिया है, हम एक दूसरे के लिए है. तो मतलब है एक आदमी दूसरी आदमी का मदद करेगा. वो किसी भी कौम का हो सकता है, किसी की जाति का हो सकता, किसी के श्रेणी का हो सकता, क्लास का हो सकता है. हम लोग करते हैं कैसे मदद करेंगे? मदद होता है हम लोग कुछ अचीव करें दुनिया की. दुनिया मतलब दुनिया का जो आदमी है, जो इंसान है, इसके. तो दुनिया को हम लोग क्या दिया है? और भी जो कौम है जैसे ईसाई है, जीव है, बुद्धिस्ट है, ये लोग क्या दिया? हम लोग क्या दिया? हम लोग मिडिल एज में कुछ दिया था जब यूरोप में जो रेनेसांस हुआ था उस टाइम में. मगर अभी जो मॉडर्न वर्ल्ड है इसमें हम लोग का क्या कंट्रीब्यूशन है एट फर्स्ट इसको देखना चाहिए. मुस्लिम जो दुनिया बैकवर्ड हो जा रहा है. क्यों बैकवर्ड हो जा रहा है? दिन दिन बैकवर्ड हो जा रहा है. क्यों ऐसा हो रहा है? इसको भी देखना चाहिए. आप बोलिए, कोई बोलेगा हम लोग इस्लाम को मानता है, हम लोग मुसलमान है, हम लोग वी आर ग्रेट, वी आर द बेस्ट. कैसे बोलिएगा? बोलिए. आप जो यूज कर रहे हैं जितना सामान वो तो आपका कौम का आदमी पैदा नहीं किया है, तैयार नहीं किया है. दुनिया में जो साइंटिफिक अचीवमेंट अभी तक रहा है उसमें मुस्लिम कहाँ है? आप जो लैपटॉप यूज करता है वो क्या मुस्लिम ने बनाया? आप जो कंप्यूटर यूज करता है वो क्या मुस्लिम ने बनाया है? आप जो मोबाइल यूज कर रहा है क्या वो मुस्लिम लोग ने बनाया है? आप जो फैन लाइट यूज कर रहा है, ड्रेस पहन रहा है, गाड़ी चल रहा है, प्लेन चल रहा है, दुनिया में जितना तरक्की हुआ है, हम लोग का रोल कहाँ है? इसको दिल से सुनना चाहिए, दिमाग में सुनना चाहिए। क्यों नहीं? अगर नहीं है तो क्यों नहीं है? क्या तकलीफ था मुसीबत के लिए? जो इतना कम आबादी है, ज्यूस वो लोग का अंदर है, ईसाई का अंदर है, जो बुद्धिस्ट का अंदर है, कुछ दूर तक हिंदुइज्म जो करता है वो लोग का अंदर भी है, पारसी लोग का भी अंदर है। हम लोग का इतना ज्यादा पॉपुलेशन है, सेकेंड लार्जेस्ट रिलीजियस ग्रुप ऑफ दिस वर्ल्ड, हम लोग की क्यों नहीं? इसको सोचता है। कोई कोई मुस्लिम लोग बोलता है कि यूएसए अमेरिका हम लोग को टॉर्चर चला रहे, टॉर्चर कर हम लोग। अच्छा, यूएसए क्यों टॉर्चर करता है? क्योंकि वो लोग का हाथ पावर है, बिगेस्ट पावर ऑफ दिस वर्ल्ड। अगर वो लोग के पास पावर है तो वो लोग के पास नॉलेज भी है, वो लोग के पास एजुकेशन भी है। तो मुस्लिम लोग को कौन मना किया था एजुकेशन लेने से? कौन मना किया था एम्पावरमेंट पावर को कैच करने से? जो यूएसए को मिला है, दुनिया का किसी भी मुस्लिम कंट्री को क्यों नहीं मिला है? इसको पहले सोचना चाहिए। कोई माना किया था, कुरान ने माना किया था कि तुम लोग दुनिया का सबसे ताकतवर आदमी बन जाओ, माना किया था। सबसे एजुकेटेड आदमी बन जाओ, माना किया था। सबसे वेल्दी आदमी बन जाओ, माना किया था? नहीं माना किया। तब मुस्लिम लोग उस जगह में क्यों नहीं गए? अफगानिस्तान वीक है, यूएसए स्ट्रॉन्ग है। अफगानिस्तान को वीक कौन बनाया है? अफगानिस्तान से शेरशाह बना था, शेरशाह जो फरीद का नाम था। और भारत पाकिस्तान का सबसे बड़ा जो रोड है, ग्रैंड ट्रैंक रोड बनाया था। भारत में जो तरक्की हुआ है, जो डेवलपमेंट हुआ है, खास करके लैंड रिफॉर्म में, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में, और शेरशाह का अवदान है, कंट्रीब्यूशन है। वो तो अफगानिस्तान का पर्सन था, वो तो अफगान था। अभी अफगानिस्तान कहाँ है? दुनिया कहाँ? क्यों ऐसा हुआ? एजुकेशन को छोड़ दिया, सिर्फ धर्म का अंदर छुप चला ये लोग का आदत बन गया। ऐसा करने से क्या कुरान को इज्जत होता है? कुरान की यही शिक्षा देता है। आप कुरान पढ़िए, उसको समझने की कोशिश कीजिए और उसका इम्प्लीमेशन कीजिए सही ढंग से। जो दुनिया को तरक्की हो रहा है, एक तरक्की में हम लोग शामिल नहीं होगा तो दुनिया का सेकेंड लार्जेस्ट कम्युनिटी सिर्फ बोझ बन जाएगा दुनिया का। अभी ऐसा ही हो रहा है। हम लोग का पेट में कीड़ा है, भूखा है हम लोग, ज्ञान भी नहीं है, इसलिए टेररिस्ट पैदा हो रहा है। जो पावरफुल है, पावरफुल फोर्स जो है दुनिया में, वो लोग कभी कभी टॉर्चर भी कर देता है और हम लोग वीक है। क्या हो रहा है? टेररिस्ट बन जा रहा है। डायरेक्ट लड़ाई करने का ताकत नहीं है, पीछे से लड़ाई कर, पीछे से लड़ाई कर कौन करता है? जिसमें ताकत नहीं बनता है। इसलिए तो ईरान को देख लीजिए, उसका पर्सनैलिटी है, वो बिकता नहीं। ईरान को देख लीजिए, एक देश है दुनिया में अभी तक है, पर्सनैलिटी है, अपना ताकत पे जिंदा रहता है, चिरेगा, कोशिश नहीं करता है। एग्जाम्पल बनाएंगे, कुछ अच्छा को नकल कीजिए। हर धर्म कल्चर में जो अच्छा चीज होता है उसको अपना लीजिए, और अपने में, अपना कम्युनिटी में जो खराबी है उसको हटाइए। ये तरक्की का नाम होता है। इनसाइट ऑफ इस्लाम जो देखिएगा, नबी ने इस्लाम को जो प्रचार किया था अरब में, इतना आसान काम नहीं था। कितना आदमी ने नबी को बेइज्जत किया था, माना था। कभी नबी ने कभी अभिशाप नहीं दिया है, कभी एक्साइटेड देखो मारने का ऑर्डर नहीं दिया था, कभी नहीं दिया। और हम लोग मुस्लिम लोग कभी नबी को इंसल्ट किया, मार दो, कर दो, जला दो। क्या चल रहा है? इस्लाम को जो टॉलरेंस का, इस्लाम का जो टॉलरेंस का नीति है, जिसको इज्जत करता है पूरा दुनिया, हम उसको बेइज्जत कर रहे हैं, खुद बेइज्जत कर रहे हैं। एक बार यहाँ का जो रिनेसेंस का, इंडिया का रिनेसेंस का जो सबसे बड़ा मैसेंजर था, जो पायनियर था, उसका नाम है राजा राममोहन राय। राजा राममोहन राय, राजा राममोहन राय अरबिक लैंग्वेज, उर्दू लैंग्वेज, फारसी लैंग्वेज, इंग्लिश, बंगाली, हर लैंग्वेज में पंडित आदमी था और मदरसा में भी पढ़ा था। वो एक तो बात बोला था, हजरत मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम हम लोग को प्रॉफिट को सबसे बेइज्जत कौन किया है? वो बोला था क्या सबसे बेइज्जत किया है? उसका जो नबी का सबसे बड़ा जो समालोचक है, जो क्रिटिसाइज करते हैं, जानबूझ के बेइज्जत करते हो। और सेकंड है जो अंधा मुस्लिम है, जो अंधा तरीके से नबी को अपना जो अंधा तरीका जो नबी को प्रॉपरली यूटिलाइज नहीं किया, नबी को जो ऑर्थोडॉक्स से मिला दिया, वो गोरा मुस्लिम और जो नबी का दुश्मन और कौन है जो नबी को बेइज्जत करने के लिए सिर्फ बात करता है। ये दोनों सेक्शन नबी को सबसे ज्यादा बेइज्जत है। एक है उसका गोरा भक्त और सेकंड है उसका सबसे बड़ा झूठ जो उसको क्रिटिसाइज करता है। दोनों किस्म का आदमी दुनिया में नबी को सबसे बेइज्जत किया है। राजा राम मोहन राय के ये बात था, इसको अभी समझना है, सोचना है, देखना है। हम बड़ा है, हम ग्रेट है, हम सबसे ज्यादा पावरफुल है, सबसे दुनिया का बेस्ट है, सबसे बड़ा कौम है। ये बोलने का पहले देखना चाहिए दुनिया का आदमी के लिए, पूरा दुनिया के लिए हमारा कंट्रीब्यूशन क्या है। कुरान दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा धर्म ग्रंथ हो सकता है, मगर मुसलमान क्या है इसको सुनना है। जो कुरान का बानी को दुनिया में फैलेगा, स्प्रेड करेगा, क्या वो इतना एबिलिटी संचय क्या है, इतना पावरफुल हुआ है जो कुरान को इज्जत दे सकता। मुस्लिम लोग को समझना चाहिए, सोचना चाहिए तरीका क्या है। हमको जो लोग हमला किया था, हम भारत में भी हमारा है, ये देश को आजादी के लिए हजारों मुस्लिम लोग का खून बह गए थे। हजारों मुस्लिम का, हिंदू का, सिख का, ईसाई का खून बह गया था। खासकर का मुस्लिम लोग के बारे में बोल रहा है, जान दिया था, कुर्बानी दिया था। वो देश तो, ये देश तो हमारा है। हम लोग तो पाकिस्तान में नहीं गए, बांग्लादेश में नहीं गए, हम भारत का, भारत का, भारत का। तो भारत के नेशनल एंथम को इज्जत देना हमारा फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज है। वही काम करने के लिए गए थे। जन गण मन अधिनायक जाए, ये हम लोग का देश का नेशनल एंथम है। एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन में डेली पेयर्स पे इसको इंट्रोड्यूस करने की कोशिश कर रहे थे, क्योंकि वहां कभी होता नहीं है। हमारे ऊपर हमला कर दिया। क्या वो हमला किया? जन गण मन हिंदुत्ववादी गीत है, क्या बात है, जानलेवा हमला हो गया। इसको नफरत क्या है? कुरान में परिष्कार लिखा है एकदम क्लियरली, बॉडी के कुरान का, जो मुसलमान अपना देश को इज्जत नहीं देगा, प्यार नहीं करेगा, जो मुस्लिम अपना लैंग्वेज को, अपना मदर टंग की इज्जत नहीं देगा, वो मुस्लिम नहीं है। कुरान में ऐसा बात है। हम लोग को मालूम नहीं, पढ़ता नहीं। 90% मुस्लिम कुरान का मीनिंग ही कभी पढ़ा नहीं। मौलाना मौलवी जो लोग गलत तरीके से सिखाता है, वो ये सीखता है, उसका भी प्रैक्टिस करता है, चर्चा करता है। इसलिए मुस्लिम दुनिया में इस्लाम जो बोला है, जो ट्रू विजडम ऑफ इस्लाम जो होना चाहिए, ट्रू नॉलेज ऑफ इस्लाम जो होना चाहिए, वो खत्म हो जा रहा है। फंडामेंटली लोग इस्लाम को जो इज्जत है उसको बेइज्जत करना है। इसको रोकना चाहिए, सीखना चाहिए, समझना चाहिए। अगर हम लोग इस तरीके से चलेगा तो हम लोग कुरान को साइंटिफिक नजर से पढ़ेगा तो, देखेगा तो, सोचेगा तो, तब मुस्लिम को वर्ल्ड में एक इज्जत जगह में उसमें रहेगा, पोजीशन में रहेगा, तब एक काम का तरक्की होगा, तब कुरान का असली इज्जत बन सकता। थैंक यू, नमस्ते।
Namaskar. It
Thank
was a
you.
beautiful speech. Thank you. Yeah, Aminti, you can continue.
Yes. I'm sorry, just a sorry. Yeah. So thank you so much, Mr. Kaji Masum Akhtarji. Now we will like to welcome Professor Shahnurur Rahman on today's panel. Professor Rahman is a specialist on medieval Bengal, Sufism, Islam, and syncretism at the Department of History, Northeastern Hill University. So we like to begin with Professor Rahman.
Respected organizer of today's consortium, fellow panelists, and learned viewers. First of all, I would like to express my hearty greeting and salam to all of you. I am neither a theologian nor an Islamist, but as a student of history, I know little bit about Islam as a historical movement. And I'm very much impressed by the analytical mind and keen perception of my fellow panelists who has already delivered their lectures. You know, I have decided to talk on an aspect of Islam that is universalism in Islamic tradition. Recently, I have published a paper on the same title. So I think this is the need of the hour. I should share my view with you all. You know, Islam is grossly misunderstood and misinterpreted by some scholars, but this is the time to highlight the inner spirit of Islam in this platform as a researcher, as a student of history, on the basis of original Islamic sources. So let me talk from the Holy Quran. What Holy Quran talks about the universalism. Actually, if you go through the Quran, it clearly says, "Wama arsalana illa rahmatil lil alamin." So Quran did not mention that Quran is for the Muslimin. It is for alamin, and God is the mercy for all. If I translate this line into English, it should be like this: "We have sent thee, O Prophet, but a messenger to all mankind. Give them good tidings and warn them against sin. But most of the people understand not." So this is the Quranic verses. Quran is for all mankind, not only for the Muslim. So this is the universal appeal. And if you go to Quran again, the beginning of Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha, what is Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen? It means praise be to Allah, the Lord of the universe. That means universal teaching is given here. Even Quran taught us how to live together with perfect harmony and amity. I would like to quote from Quran, La Ikra Fiddin, means there is no compulsion in religion. Quran further says, Lakum dinokum waliyadin, to you your religion and to me my religion. That means Quran recognizes all the religions. Quran declared humankind as asraful makhluqat, base creation of Allah. I don't take my temptation to quote another verse from the Quran. It says, "O mankind, we created you from a single pair of a male and female and made you into nations and tribes so that you may know each other, not that you may despise each other. Verily, the most honored of you in the sight of Allah is He who is the most righteous of you." So, there are so many verses in the Quran, so I am not going in detail, last parts I quote from Quran. Quran says, those who believe in the Quran, those who follow the Jews' scripture, and the Sabians and the Christians who believe in God and the last day and work righteously, on them shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. So what is the teaching of Quran? Quran taught the people how to live together, how to work together, how to do betterment for the world together. Quran taught togetherness is happiness. And it was also reflected in the hadith, in the farewell sermon, when Prophet Muhammad delivered before his death. Dr. Gautam Ghosh also referred this thing, but I would like to give one particular passage. What he said that is very, very important in today's aspect, because the modern world is fighting in the name of caste, creed, religion, and gender. So what Quran said, sorry, what Prophet said, he said, and here came, O mankind, an Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab. And a non-Arab is not superior to an Arab. A white man is not superior to a black man, except by virtue of his conduct. The noblest in the sight of Allah is he who is noblest in conduct. And you know, when Prophet Muhammad left Mecca for Medina, where he established a state, and he signed a treaty with the non-Muslims in Medina. And this treaty is called Magna Carta. That was the first written constitution in the world. And this constitution is really very, very significant in human history because of the fact here he recognized all the religion by signing the treaty. And one of the provisions I would like to mention here, he says Muslims, Jews, and other communities of this republic should be free to profess their own respective religions and perform their religious ceremony. Nobody could interfere. So it was told in the 7th century. See the farsightedness of the man and respect for others. And he said all human beings are equal. And the highest rank was his, who was the most obedient to Allah and most useful to mankind. So that was the mission of the Prophet, and he preached. And you know, some of our friends talk about the Sufis. Actually, the Sufis are the lover, devoted lover of God. They are the lover of God and lover of mankind. They work for the satisfaction of God and fulfillment of the human being. And you know, all the Sufis believe in the oneness of God and oneness of humankind. I would like to refer Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi. You all know his famous book, Masnavi. And in this book, he tried to preach the mission of humanity, to preach the mission of the strength of God, and he preached the mission of universality and universalism. One of his quotation I would like to share with you when he was asked about his identity. He said, what is to be done, Muslims? I myself do not know. I am neither Christian nor Jew, neither Magians nor Muslims. I am not from India, not from China, not from Bulgaria, not from Saksin. I am not from the kingdom of two Iraqs. I am not from the land of Khorasan. My place is placeless. My trace is traceless. No body, no soul. I am from the soul of the soul. Here he tried to say that humankind is one. Science also says that human being belongs to one specimen. And you know, a famous Sufi couplet we came to learn. One Sufi Moinuddin Chishti says about oneness. He says, learn from the eyes the way to develop unity and oneness. The two eyes appear different, but their vision is one. So all the Sufi, they tried to teach human beings how to live together, how to work together, how to develop humanity, how to mingle with each other without any interest. So these are the things. And Moinuddin Chishti further says about the quality that India to man, God, first river-like generosity, secondly the sun-like affection, and thirdly earth-like hospitality. And the Sufis, Khanka, Jamaat Khana, Langar Khana were the meeting place of the people. They ate together, they lived together, they prayed together in congregation. So these are the teaching which help. So we can say Islamic mysticism molded by the Sufis became all inclusivist. That is why it can be said, it can be rightly said that Sufism is free from the shackles of parochialism. Thus, the universality of Sufism is accepted on all hands. Sufism becomes malleable, multi-voice, and all-pervasive. Even the Sufis are known as Peer also. They came to our country, India. They preached their mission of oneness of God and humanity of mankind. And so many people were very much impressed by their ideology. And you know, historically, India was conquered by the Muslim conquerors. But the heart of the Indian people were conquered by the Sufis. So they are at the heart of the people. That is why a medieval poet, Bengali poet wrote, Hindu devata hoilo Musalmaner peer, dui kule loy puja hoya jahi. It means the peer of the Muslim became the god of the Hindu. They manifested and worshipped by both the communities. So the Peer and Sufis develop a kind of syncretic culture in Bengal as well as India, and they are liked and loved by people. So it is the case for the Sufis. On the other hand, we know another Sufi, Darab Khan or Triveni. This Sufi was a highly learned man. He knew very good Sanskrit, and he composed Ganga Stok in Sanskrit language. And even till date, the Brahmins, when they take bath in the river Ganga, they utter this hymn, this sloka, in time of their birth. And that is why a Muslim poet, instead of scolding Darab Khan, he prayed. And he said, Tribenir ghatete bondini Darab Khan, Ganga jar ojur pani kurito joga. Darab Khan is adored at Tribeni Ghat. And the river Ganga supplied the water of his ablution. So these are the things we have noticed. So what is the essence of Islam? I can say by uttering a poet, by quoting a poem composed by one of my teachers in the university level, addressing to the Prophet. He says, Moner kone dekhechi tomar duiti chilo aradhana. সাম্যের বুকে সমাজ গড়া প্রতিপালকের বন্ধন মরুর বুকে কোরআন প্রচার পবিত্র তোমার পেশা মানব জাতির উত্থান ছিল একটি তোমার নেশা বিশ্ব বুকে তোমার মতো বিশ্বপিতার বর্ণনা সেই পিতারই সন্তান সবে এক অভিন্ন ভাই জানা Here he tried to give emphasis on equality, fraternity, and universal brotherhood. According to him, universalism was the inner voice of Islam. And his main focus is this, that Prophet tried his level best to liberate man, to unite man, to educate man, and in a word, to humanize man. So the mission of Islam is humanity. And so much so far, this humanity is being practiced by the Muslims and non-Muslims. The world would be the abode of the humankind. So thank you very much. I think within time, I have finished my talk. Thank you once again.
It was a great speech. Thank you.
Your speech was so much enlightening, Dr. Raman. It
Thank
was
you so
really
much. Thank you.
enlightening. ভীষণ ভালো লেগেছে। আমি সত্যি
বাহ,
কথা
বাহ।
বলতে আমার এত ভালো লেগেছে আপনার স্পিচটা। আমি শুনছিলাম খুব মন দিয়ে, সবার স্পিচই শুনছিলাম, কিন্তু খুব ভালো লেগেছে।
আমারও
তো
ভালো লাগলো যে আপনাদের ফোরামে আসতে পেরে।
হ্যাঁ,
This is the first time I am with you all.
থ্যাংক ইউ
And
সো
today
মাচ।
I travel from Calcutta to Shillong. I reached just 1 hour before.
ওকে, থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ ফর জয়েনিং। সো
ডক্টর ঘোষ,
লেটস
ভালো লাগলো আপনাকেও।
থ্যাংক ইউ, থ্যাংক ইউ।
সবাইকে।
মানে খুবই সুন্দর স্পিচ, ইট ওয়াজ অ্যান এক্সেলেন্ট স্পিচ। অ্যাকচুয়ালি যেটা আপনি কাজী মৌসুম আক্তার ভাই এবং আপনি বললেন, কাজী মৌসুম আক্তার, and you told this shows the greatness of Islam. এটাই কিন্তু ইসলাম অ্যাকচুয়ালি কি সেটাই দেখায়, rather than parochialistic approach, which is highly appreciated here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's move on to Dr. Amit De. Dr. De, are you here? Dr. De, are you here? One second.
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
Oh, you're here. Okay. So let me introduce Dr. De. Dr. De has been in our panel, for Hinduism also. So he's a great man. I should introduce him. So Dr. De is the Ashutosh Chair, a professor of medieval and modern Indian history in the Department of History Center for Advanced Studies, University of Calcutta, ex-head of the Department of History and present MPhil coordinator in history, CU, Calcutta University. He received a PhD in history from the University of London. His area of specialization is Islam. So being a Hindu, he specializes in Islam. And
I am an atheist. I am an atheist.
Atheist, okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Mysticism and Islamic mysticism in medieval and modern South Asia. He has been awarded with several international fellowships too. The Comprehensive History of Indian Society has selected him as the joint editor for Volume X, Volume 10. He has published over 55 articles on Islam and Islamic mysticism in academic journals. He delivered lectures in famous institutions around the globe. We'd like to welcome Dr. De. Dr. De, please, you're a great man. Whether you're atheist or a Muslim or a Hindu, you're a great man. Anyway.
Anyway, a very kind introduction, madam. I'm grateful to Dr. Ghosh, who just dragged me into this very noble program, which is actually sustaining humanity all over the world for the time being through this sort of web facility, that is online facility, but that is a positive aspect. Now, I'm also grateful to Ms. Ghosh, Ms. Gypsy Ghosh, for organizing or helping to organize a program of this stature, and all the participants, all the speakers, previous speakers. I'm also learning from them. Now, what I notice from the presentations of our previous speakers, that there's a tension going on between two spectrum. One is the liberal rational interpretation of Islam. Another is the scriptural, and rather what Dr. Ghosh has mentioned, rather parochial or rather sectarian interpretation of Islam. Now, as far as I understand, though I am an atheist, but I very seriously study religion, Islam and other religions as well. I have noticed that particularly there are rationalist schools within Islam. Someone had spoken about, Qazi Sahib spoken about Raja Rammohn Roy. Raja Rammohn Roy was immensely influenced by the rationalist school of Islam known as the Mu'tazila school. They were persecuted in the 10th century for their liberal ideas, but there's another story. I'm not going into that. But Rammohn Roy was immensely influenced by the Mu'tazila school, the rationalist school of Islam. Rammohn Roy was an elite, but if you go to the Bengal countryside, the folk singers, the bauls, Lalon Shah in his song is mentioning Mu'tazila Tare Koi. That is, he is afraid to share the views of the Mu'tazilais because he, like Qazi Sahib, who was our previous speaker, may be assaulted by the custodians of religious fundamentalism. So he was afraid to divulge the mystical truth. So there's a tension going on between this liberal interpretation, mystical interpretation of the Quran. That is very important. You have to read between lines, as Qazi Sahib has mentioned, that you need not literally interpret the very holy scripture. You have to read between lines. You have to understand the inner meaning of scriptures. That's why tafsir literature is very famous, as Professor Khan earlier mentioned about Abul Kalam Azad and also Gandhi. They were very much interested in tafsir, that is commentary on the Quran. You have to make Quran 20th century and now 21st century, so that we can inherit from Gandhi and the likes of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. Tafsir, that is the commentary on the Quran, is very important. So that's why, whether you like it or not, you have to read between lines. You have to address some of the problems which were not present in the 6th century or in the 7th century. So that is why I approach Islam from a very pragmatic approach, from a pragmatic perspective. Now look at the Sufis have been praised. So I, from the very beginning, challenged the thesis offered by Samuel Huntington. That is the book entitled Clash of Civilizations. Actually, there is no clash between East and West, between Christianity and the world beyond Christianity. There's a clash within every religion, within Christianity, within Hinduism, within Islam, as is manifested in the interventions, very creative and imaginative interventions of Dr. Ghosh. That is the clash within religion between scripturalism and also very rationalistic interpretation of religion. But we need, for our survival, for the betterment of mankind, we need rationalistic interpretation of religion. So my previous speakers also implied the importance of such interpretation. So let us start with certain aspects like Sufis. Actually, Akbar did not introduce Sulle Kul. This is interesting, or that is peace with all. We can give credit to Akbar definitively, because he institutionalized the notion of Sulle Kul, or peace with all, when Elizabeth was persecuting the Roman Catholics, when the French Roman Catholics or Roman Catholic ruler had been persecuting the Huguenots for their religious belief, and they were migrating to the country Switzerland, and still they are making watches. They are skilled artisans. So French people lost artisanal skill by persecuting the Protestants or the Huguenots. So we understand from that, we do not learn anything from religious struggle. We have to look, we have to explore amity, we have to explore commonality for a better world. So that's why when you speak about Sulle Kul, it was introduced by the Qadri Sufis. Qadri is a Sufi silsila, very important in India and some other parts of the world. Qadris are very intriguing people. They used to read Vedas and Upanishads as well. And Darashuko, the ill-fated scholar prince, Mughal prince, who was killed by his brother Aurangzeb, Darashuko was also a Qadri. He used to say that I am Hanafi Qadri. I am Hanafi, that's a law school of Islam, and also a Qadri. So Qadris were influential so far as insightful interpretation of Islam in the subcontinent is concerned. We have to recognize that. Akbar only institutionalized the peace with all theory, that is Sulle Kul theory. Very important. So Qadris are very important. And one Qadri, another Qadri, Guru of Darashuko, Mian Mir, he was invited by the Sikh Guru to lay the foundation stone of Harmandir Sahib. So India was like that. There was comparative theological studies, comparative religious studies introduced by the intervention of the Sufis, the Sikhs, and also by the Hindus, because the Hindus helped Darashuko to translate Upanishad from Sanskrit into Persian. And Upanishad actually literally means mystery. And Darashuko's translation in Persian, Sirri Akbar, when he translated 58 Upanishads from Sanskrit into Persian, which migrated to the Western world and appreciated by Schopenhauer. So what is that meaning? Sirri Akbar, the great mystery. Akbar means great, and Sir means mystery. So to divulge the mystery of religion, you have to read between lines. You have to rationalize the scripture, as mentioned by my previous speakers, particularly Qazi Sahib. I appreciate Qazi Sahib's understanding of religion. And then you can speak about this aspect. Rumi, my colleague, my friend Shah Nurul Rahman has mentioned about Rumi, Jalaluddin Rumi of Masnawi fame. Rumi has clearly mentioned when he interpreted the Quran. Quran clearly mentions that God has sent a religious leader for each and every community. But sometimes I have not mentioned specifically the religions. So Darashuko said that there is a hidden book in the Quran, and Upanishad is that hidden book. He was trying to accommodate the non-Muslims. He was broadening the definition of citizenship. Rammohn Roy was doing that. And even the so-called conservative Radhakanta Dev was doing that. They all knew Arabic and Persian. So they knew a sort of a liberal, intuitive Islam, and were thinking about the nation building process in the embryonic form, nation building process in India, of course, by interpreting various religions, including Islam. This is insightful Islam from their perspective. Taking the thread from that sort of an insightful Islam, they were contemplating a composite India, which will include Muslims, Hindus, Christians, and Buddhists, Jains, Sikhs, all other communities, even the Adivasis. So this was inclusive, cosmopolitan India that was contemplated in intuitive, insightful Islam. So this is interesting, and remember all the great preachers like Kabir, Lalon Shah, Shah Abdul Latif of Sindh, Hyder Ali, Akbar the Great. They were all non-literate. And the person Abdullah Sheth, who familiarized Gandhi with Islam, was non-literate. But I have a case for non-literate people. They are not confined to scriptures because they do not have access to words, written words. They cannot read, but they have intuitive knowledge. They, in an intuitive manner, interpreted Islam, interpreted religion. And what they found? They found humanity. Think about the turban of the Sikhs, which is temporal as well as spiritual. Think about the elongated turban of the Rumiite Mevlevi Dervish, their anti-clockwise dance, whirling dervish. Their elongated turban resembles a tomb. Underneath the tomb, a human body is buried. So underneath the tomb-like turban, your ego, nafs, is buried. So when you bury your nafs or ego, what is left? Ishq. Ishq means love, love for mankind, love for humanity. That is insightful Islam, popularized and familiarized by the intervention, creative intervention of the Sufis and many other great Indians like Raja Rammohn Roy and others, Gandhi, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, Akbar the Great, who were inspired by these Sufis. Now there is another tension within Islam we notice. In the medieval period is not that medieval, modern period is not that modern. You understand? You have mentioned, some of our previous speakers have mentioned that the world is ridden with strifes, with conflicts, with bloodshed. So to overcome that, you need insightful interiorization of Islam. So now there's a clash we have mentioned between civilizations that is caused by another tension between ijtihad, that is the right of the individual to interpret scripture according to changing circumstances. That right is denied to the freedom-loving individual. For example, that is denied in Talibanized Afghanistan. I'm not elaborating because time constraint is there. Time is ticking out for me. And then the opposite spectrum is of ijtihad is taqleed, that is uncritical acceptance of the verdicts of the imams, of the religious leaders. You need not gravitate towards uncritical acceptance of religion. You have to interiorize religion by rationalistic interpretation for the betterment of mankind, for a creative, meaningful living. So I will wind up by mentioning one or two few points. That is Gandhi, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Zakir Hussain, and many others challenged the two-nation theory. They challenged exclusivism. They challenged the vivisection of South Asia. And in doing that, they again were inspired by Islam, by the peace treaty of Hudaybiyah. Now, many Muslim theologians do not understand the significance of peace treaty of Hudaybiyah or the Medinan constitution, where the Prophet Muhammad just accepted, legitimized pluralism and cosmopolitanism. Flourishing of different religious faiths, that was mentioned, that was institutionalized, that was immortalized in the words that you find in the peace treaty of Hudaybiyah, struck during the lifetime of the Prophet, and the Medinan constitution also emerged during the lifetime of the Prophet. So that is Sunnah. But are you following the Sunnah? Sunnah means peaceful, meaningful, creative, engaging coexistence. That's why Rumi said, and Akbar could not read, but his officials used to read it out before him, the Masnavi, famous Masnavi, Masnavi, Manavi, Maulavi, as Quran dar Zabane Pahlavi. That is the Quran in the Persian verse. So there, by interpreting the Quran, insightful, Maulana Rumi is saying, and Akbar was contemplating a composite empire, a pluralistic empire, a culture state, not a theocracy. By imbibing the spirit of Rumi, and Devendranath Tagore also started his day by reading Hafiz. After reading Hafiz, Akbar discontinued jizya, abolished jizya from the non-Muslim population. After reading Rumi, Rumi is saying in Masnavi, if God wished, he could have created only one religious community, but it was not his intention. That's why he created many religious communities and sent a religious leader for each of them. Particularly the religion of the people of Sindh and Hind should not be interfered with. So he was speaking about a multi-religious world, as my previous speaker, Professor Khan, has rightly mentioned. Abul Kalam Azad called it Wadatul Din. There should be unity of religions. And Ahle Kitab, yes, Hindus were considered as people of the book by Darashuko, and also many Sufi saints like Chirag Dehlavi of 14th century Delhi. They considered Hindus as the people of the book. So I wind up by one reference of the Naqshbandi experimentation with religion in the 18th century when the great Mughal Empire was facing decline. But then there was a light, there was every cloud has a silver lining that was resonated in the intervention of a Naqshbandi Sufi, Mirza Mazar Jani Janan, who introduced a term, Tasawwari Sheikh, that is imagining the face of the Sheikh or a Guru. So some of the very staunch Muslims said, why don't you convert he had Hindu disciples. Why don't you convert your Hindu disciples? So Mirza Mazar Jani Janan said, let us do an experimentation. So close your eyes. They closed their eyes. I mean the staunch Muslims, and think about religion. They started to think about religion. Then he asked, then now you can open your eyes. They opened their eyes and he asked, when you closed your eyes, did you see anything? Yes, your face appeared in our mind. So he said, you are also idolatrous people. So I must convert you first. You claim yourselves as staunch Muslims, but you are also idolatrous people, because when you think about religion, you are not supposed to think about human face, like the face of myself. So there are commonalities which you have to creatively explore for the betterment of mankind. You have to create a common platform on which people representing different faiths can converge for the betterment of the nation and for the betterment of the world. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for your patience. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you
An
very
incredible
much.
speech. Most informative, Professor De.
Yes, yes.
We remain indebted.
Thank you so much, Dr. De. Thank you for this information and beautiful speech.
Thank you.
So let's move on to Canada, to a Canadian Muslim lady, Saima Hussain. So Saima Hussain earned an honors BA in English and History and an MA in South Asian Studies from the University of Toronto. She is the author of 2 books, The Arab World Thought of It, Inventions, Innovations, and Amazing Facts, Anik Press 2013, and The Muslima Who Fell to Earth, Personal Stories by Canadian Muslim Women, Mawenzi House, 2016. Salma recently returned to university for a master's in library and information science. She now works as a librarian at the Toronto Public Library. Saima, it's your turn now.
Welcome everyone. Hello, thank you for this. It's been an interesting afternoon Canada time. The internet certainly gives us a lot of opportunity. We have Zoom on which we can hold discussions, meet people. We may or may not agree with a lot of what they say. For example, I would question some of the things my co-panelists have said, but it's good to be part of a discussion. The internet also has given us social media. And social media, you meet all sorts of characters. You also get to read and hear all sorts of opinions. It's not unusual when you go on certain platforms. Say, for example, I was reading somewhere, it's not uncommon to hear Muslims referred to as Oe converted. That's a common way that they're addressed. But I actually laughed when I heard Muslims being referred to as Oe, you flat earthers. because the Quran itself very clearly says that we are not flat earthers. I think the confusion is, the misconception is that because faith and the Quran remain so central to us Muslims, therefore we must be averse to science. We are not. The Quran chapter 39 says, He created the heavens and the earth for a purpose. He wraps the night around the day and wraps the day around the night. And He has subjected the sun and the moon, each orbiting for an appointed term. The 11th century scholar Abu Muhammad al-Juwayzi said that the earth is shaped like a watermelon. The celebrated Al-Ghazali, who lived in the same century, went so far as to say that anyone who denies that the earth is spherical has in fact made a mockery of Islam. So Islam, the Quran, does not need to be stretched. It does not need to be blended or diluted in order to be effective or in the modern world. The Quran, as we practice it, as we Muslims are comfortable with it, works for us. And there are several verses in the Quran that deal with natural phenomena. Chapter 21 of the Quran says, and we have made the sky a protected ceiling. We know now about the atmosphere. It says here, the heavens and the earth have a joined entity and we separated them. Quran chapter 21. A speaker before me talked about the Big Bang Theory, and this is exactly it. It can be interpreted as God asundering the earth and the sky apart. The Quran also says, alaq, as my former speaker said, that the humans were made from a clot of blood. This is the Quran again telling us this. There is also the Quran, but the Quran also admits that the knowledge we have given you is only very little. And this verse in Quran chapter number 17 has inspired many Muslims over the centuries into a spirit of inquiry and into seeking new knowledge. And Muslims have done this. They did this in the Golden Age when various houses of wisdom, in other words, Beit al-Hikmah, were created. In Baghdad by the Abbasid Harun al-Rashid and his son al-Mamun, in Cairo by the Fatimid al-Hakim, in Andalusia by the Umayyad al-Mustansir, and in the African city of Timbuktu, which housed a university and several madrasa. In fact, Timbuktu was such an anomaly for the West that even to this day it's referred to as Timbuktu is the word they use to define something far out of reach, far away, or even mysterious. Translations were huge in the Muslim world. Al-Mamun especially would contact emperors, his fellow emperors around the world in other empires himself, and he would request them for copies of books. As we all know, books back then weren't printed, they were handwritten. They were incredibly precious. And he was willing to pay, borrow, steal books to bring in knowledge into their world. And translation was huge because Al-Mamun would pay translators to translate books which were originally in Latin, in Greek, in Persian, into Arabic, and he would pay them in gold, which was equal to the weight of the book. So as you can tell, people were like, yes, let's learn the languages, let's learn how to translate, because being involved meant you could get very rich. These translations came in very handy as well to transfer information back to the West, because after the Dark Ages were over and the church was done with burning all the books it wanted, information then went back. What had been translated to Arabic was translated back into Latin and Greek. And so that was a very important thing that was done. Now you might question me, you might say, oh, so all the examples you just gave came from this wonderful golden age. It was all in the past. Muslims now no longer are involved in science. Muslims are not into learning. they're all busy doing other stuff, and we've lost all that. In fact, we haven't. I think we like to make our lives easy and just follow the track that everyone else would like us to follow. But the fact is, if we look a little deeper, if we actually do our research, Muslims are very much involved in science and technology even now. My first book, which I was commissioned to write, I hope everyone can see this cover, was, this, as I mentioned, was a commissioned work. And I was asked by a Toronto publisher who publishes children's books. He said that I've noticed that we have books in schools and libraries which have to do with what the West has discovered, but we don't have anything that the Arab world has discovered. Would you be interested to research and write? And I said, absolutely. And so I was given a very short time to do it because this had to go into the next school year into schools and libraries. But it was a very intense session. I got to go back to University of Toronto libraries, talk to a number of professors who I'd in fact studied with, and this book came into being. So now if I have the opportunity, I would write my third book, and my third book would be what the Muslims thought of in this present century, or the one just previous, in the 20th and 21st century. And here are just some of the names that I would include. I would include the 3 Muslim scientists who have won Nobel Prizes for science: Dr. Abdul Salam from Pakistan in physics, Dr. Ahmad Ziwali from Egypt, and Dr. Aziz Sankar from Turkey, both of the former 2 in chemistry. I would include the late Indian president, Dr. Abdul Kalam, who was a space scientist and the architect of India's missile program. I would also include Dr. Fazlur Rahman Khan, the Bangladeshi American structural engineer, who was the designer of 2 of Chicago's iconic skyscrapers, the John Hankins Center and the Willis Tower. Recently in the news, we all heard about the animal to human transplant, in which the genetically modified heart of a pig was placed into a human. The scientific director of that program at the University of Maryland is Dr. Muhammad Mohiuddin. So he played a very important role in that experiment. Dr. Farooq Albaz is an Egyptian American, a space scientist and a geologist who worked with NASA in the scientific exploration of the moon and planning of the Apollo program. It was in fact, he credited, he said that it was my pilgrimage to Makkah and being brought up as a Muslim, in which Muslims believe that the stone, the Hajar Aswad at the corner of the Kaaba, came from the sky, that it might be a moon rock. And he says that it was that belief, that upbringing and training, which led him to encourage his team to actually research the rocks and the geology of the moon. A Turkish astrophysicist, Burkin Mutlu Pakdil, made history as a Muslim woman to have a galaxy named after her. The rare double-ringed epileptic galaxy that she discovered is called the Burkin's galaxy. And last but not least, Hayat Sindhi is a Saudi-born medical scientist who is famous for making major contributions to point-of-care medical testing and biotechnology. She received the Makkah Al-Mukarramah Prize for Scientific Innovation from the Saudi royal family, and she's appointed a UNESCO ambassador. This is all that Muslims have done now in the 20th and 21st century in science and technology. So we hope to continue wherever we live to do more, whether it's Canada or India or Pakistan. So was my little contribution to Insightful Islam. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Saima. You know, your speech was really very informative. And we would like to stay connected because, you know, you are an author and you are a galaxy of knowledge, actually. You know so much, you have researched so much, you have written books and you're going to write books. You are promoting not only great Muslim people, but multiculturalism at the same time. Thank you so much for joining. Let's move on to our next speaker, Dr. Jamal Sharif from Ottawa, Canada, to the panel. Dr. Jamal Sharif is the founder and president of Humans for Peace Institution. Humans for Peace Institution is a not-for-profit NGO with the United Nations. Its members are peace lovers who are inspired to work together for peace, social justice, equality, and human rights. To promote peace around the world by standing against all forms of wars and helping refugees, we also try to promote multiculturalism by organizing intercultural and interfaith dialogues. So Dr. Sharif is engaged with his mom today. So he has sent a speech. I'm going to play that speech now. Give me 2 minutes, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon all of you. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers and the Gypsy family for the Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon all of you. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers and the Gypsy family for the huge effort of always bringing people together from different backgrounds, cultures, religious and ethnic groups. I would like to thank our audience for being here with us. The subject of the culture of peace and nonviolence communication is extremely important, even more so today than in the past. I shall argue that there are many principles of the culture of peace in Islam. However, this may be misunderstood in some societies due to the poor knowledge of Islamic teachings or wrong education. Therefore, we strongly need to have a true interpretation of the religious teaching, as well as a true approach to religious diversity to provide the culture of peace. One of the social problems in our world is the conflict that arises from political, cultural, ethnic, racial, geographical, and religious conflict. Nowadays, humans are tired from heartbreaking, diversity, and catastrophic struggle and conflicts that we are looking for more way to have peaceful and non-violent societies. The key questions here is, what exactly do we mean by peace? The term is highly emotive. Historian and many are abusing this term, especially in political propaganda. For Muslim, peace is not merely the absence of war or organized violence. It's always the presence of justice and the creation of conditions in which humans can realize their full potentials. Many writers distinguish between negative peace, which is simply the absence of war, and positive peace, which is the presence of justice. Islam is a religion of universalism, tolerance, peace, and reconciliation. Islam teaches that the life is sacred and that the believer has a duty to uphold truth and justice. Social justice is the core principle of Islam. The concepts of peace are the core of Islamic teachings. The term salam actually means peaceful or peace, harmonies in the societies in order to bring justice toward all without violence or conflicts. The primary principle in Islam is peace. Islam emphasizes on peace in communication with all Muslim and non-Muslim people in the societies and encourage an adherence to avoid war and violence. The first and cardinal principle of culture of peace in Islam is the acceptance of religion and faith is optional. According to the Islamic teaching, people are free to accept religion and belief. And the second principle is the creation of culture of peace and non-violence in the society is to pay attention of the spiritual and self-awareness inherent in our human nature that can move people to away from violence. Human nature is to bring friendship, bring other people, and to be compassionate and love with others. There is no doubt that education in any societies can play a huge role in human development and consequently in the growth of the development of these societies. Therefore, in our age of information and explanation, we need education that can be most effective factors in solving political and social challenges and bringing people together toward peace, to the worldwide citizenship, to the worldwide love and the process of the democracy, to believe in real, peaceful society. In conclusion, we need more peaceful world in which nonviolence communication will be granted. First, to teach peace and to bring people together to realize that the peaceful societies and the one free of violence is the best. Second, to avoid conflicts of with others, especially the religious one. The religious pluralism should be acceptance of the religions and the friendship between people in different religions and cultures. I think more of such interviews or educational meetings can really help people bringing peace to our society. I would like to thank everybody again, the organizers, the audience, for giving me the chance to be here with you. Wish you all the best.
So, Vimunti,
Yeah.
do you want to continue from Mariam Ahmed?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
So now we will welcome our next speaker. Let's welcome Mariam Ahmed to the panel of Insightful Islam. Mariam Ahmed is a content designer and facilitator for adult education courses and workshops. She is a learning specialist at a non-profit financial services company and an active member of the Canadian Council of Muslim Women in Durham chapter. She is also a proud small business owner at Made by Mariam, catering to sweet and savory items. So let's welcome Mariam Ahmed.
Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Namaskar. I am so happy to be here with all of you. Thank you for having me. I'm just going to ask my fellow panelist, Kubra Mir, who is supporting me technically. Thank you, Kubra, for your support, and Hemanti as well. There's a lot to cover, and I know there's a very tight time constraint, so I'm going to get right into it. Just a little bit very quickly about myself. Hemanti, thank you for the introduction. I just wanted to let everyone know that, my parents immigrated from India to Toronto over 50 years ago. I was born and brought up in Toronto, Canada. As I mentioned, there's a lot to cover, so I'm going to go right into it. I'll be speaking about Islamophobia. Next slide, please. So first of all, I think it's very important to understand exactly what is Islamophobia. In a nutshell, Islamophobia is an extreme fear or hatred of Muslims and Islam. It often leads to hate speech and hate crimes, social and political discrimination, and it can influence domestic and foreign policy as well. Next slide, please. So some common myths and misconceptions or stereotypes that are out there that contribute towards Islamophobia. Firstly, all Muslims are Arabs. This is completely untrue. Muslims are found all over the world, as you can even see by this the group of panelists that we have. They are spread everywhere. Secondly, Muslims are seen as violent and are often portrayed as terrorists. So in reality, terrorism has no religion. However, the media continuously associates it with Islam, which I'll be speaking about a little more in detail in the next slide. Thirdly, women are considered oppressed by the faith of Islam and by men. Nothing can be further from the truth. There are many rights Muslim women have. To name a few, Muslim women have the right to their own money. They can own their own properties and run businesses or own businesses. So if as an example, if a Muslim woman is married, the husband has no right over her money or her earnings and property and even inheritance. Next slide, please. So talking about the media, as we can see, there are human rights violations and Islamophobic actions happening against Muslims all over the world. The lack of mainstream media attention pertaining to this issue is saddening, but it's not surprising. At this point, the lack of media coverage pertaining to Muslims has become an industry standard. And generally speaking, we see that the only time Muslims seem to be covered in the media is when they're linked to an act of terror. This further perpetuates the normalization of fear surrounding Muslims. And when one Muslim when a Muslim person commits a heinous act, that whole religion is scrutinized rather than just that individual. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to focus a little bit more, because my content is from Canada. I'm going to focus a little bit on our local legislation and things that have happened, that are happening around us that unfortunately is contributing towards Islamophobia. We've unfortunately seen in recent years 2 bills that were passed by the government that target Canadian Muslims, Bill 21 and Bill C-51, as they are referred to. To give a very high-level understanding in very few words, Bill 21 restricts public employees such as judges, lawyers, police force, teachers from wearing religious symbols such as the hijab or the turban or wearing the cross. So there are other restrictions as well, but in short, it is a racist, xenophobic, and Islamophobic law passed under the guise of secularism. The second bill, Bill C-51, contains many infringements on our Canadian rights and freedoms. To name one, it allows government institutions more freedom to share our private information with law enforcement agencies and allows for greater racial and religious profiling. Next slide, please. So with these government bills that have passed and the media and the political environments fueling Islamophobia, the impact is very, very real. To mention a few instances that have occurred in Canada, we saw that back in 2017, there was the Quebec City mosque shooting, which was a terrorist attack. 6 worshippers were killed and 5 others were seriously injured after evening prayers when a lone shooter came in to the mosque and started shooting. Though the Canadian government declared this as a terrorist attack, the shooter was never charged or sentenced as a terrorist or a terrorist activity. Next slide, please. In 2020, September 12th, Muhammad Aslam Zafis was taken in an act of Islamophobic violence at the International Muslim Organization Mosque by a man allegedly linked to a white supremacist organization. He was stabbed to death. Mr. Zafis was a caretaker of the mosque, and he was simply sitting outside handing out food to the needy before his life was cut short so brutally. Next slide, please. A beautiful Muslim family out on an evening stroll was murdered in a horrific act of Islamophobic violence last year on June 6, 2021, where the terrorist ran the car over his family walking on the side of the road. The only survivor of the terror attack was a 9-year-old boy that killed his sister, father, mother, and grandmother. So his whole family was wiped out in seconds, leaving him as an orphan. So I'm mentioning these few incidences, these attacks of terror, and coming from Islamophobic thought, it's really important to realize the impact terror acts like this have on us as Muslims, which ultimately is creating fear. Personally, I usually go for daily walks in the evening, and I actually changed my walking route when this occurred and started walking within my neighborhood, a little bit very local and covered rather than on the sidewalk along main roads, as I felt very unsafe and exposed, thinking something like this can very easily happen to me. I'm very visibly Muslim. So this is the reality for many Canadians caused by Islamophobia. Next slide, please. I'd like to also now next address the topic of gendered Islamophobia. So what exactly is that? Gendered Islamophobia is basically a term used to describe the specific forms of Islamophobic stereotypes and discrimination that Muslim women face. Through gendered Islamophobia, Muslim women are portrayed as weak, oppressed, repressed, and as helpless victims. It's important to understand how the narratives in gendered Islamophobia make Muslim women more vulnerable to gender-based violence. The majority of anti-Muslim hate crimes are directed at Muslim women. This is gendered Islamophobia at work. Muslim women are thought to be easy targets, and this heightens the likelihood of violence being perpetrated against them. Islamophobic violence against Muslim women is both racist violence and gender-based violence. You know, there have been so many Muslim women I know, friends and family members, that have taken off their hijab just because of the gendered Islamophobia, being so visibly Muslim and fearful of being attacked. There's been many instances of strangers attacking Muslim women in Canada, in the US, verbally and physically abusing them and yanking off their hijab. On a personal level, I have also been verbally abused due to wearing the hijab. Next slide, please. Now that we have an understanding of Islamophobia, how do we combat it? Firstly, all of you attending today's session is one way to combat Islamophobia. So a big thank you to all in attendance. Making the effort to understand Islamophobia and learning about Islam and Muslims and sharing those learnings with others is a huge step in helping combat Islamophobia. It's not enough to believe you're not Islamophobic. We all have to be actively anti-Islamophobic. So there are many things you can do to fight against Islamophobia, no matter what your faith is. There's many ways. I'd just list or go through a few ways that you can think about and act on. Number one, talk to Muslims about their religion, about their faith. We love to talk about our faith. Now, don't be afraid. We're more than happy to be approached and ask questions and ask so you can understand, start that dialogue, interfaith dialogue even, to learn and share your own faith as well. Secondly, call out news organizations and other forms of media on discriminatory coverage and bias against Muslims. Thirdly, demand respect and protection from Muslims, from politicians, if you see unjust laws and policies being put forward. And lastly, I'd like to mention, refuse to stay silent on hate. Don't be quiet. We need to support each other to eradicate hate. Next slide, please. So Islamophobia, unfortunately, is experienced all around the world. As mentioned earlier, media plays a major role in defaming Islam and putting incorrect information out there and tries to inflame. We see the Islamophobic attacks and atrocities being committed against Muslims around the world, such as the New Zealand shootings, the unjust laws and harsh treatments of Muslims in France, the detention camps in China, and the anti-Muslim hate that we see happening in India. On a personal note, most of my family is in India, and it's my culture, it's my background, and it's very dear to me. And it breaks my heart when I see some of the things that are happening in such a beautiful and diverse country with so many faiths and different languages, cultures, festivals, wonderful food, and clothing. These are things to be proud of and protect and have an environment of unity and tolerance and acceptance for all. We're all in this together. On an encouraging note, I just like to think about and refer to the words of Mahatma Gandhi, which I find very inspiring. And as a reminder, if you do start to despair a bit, he wrote, when I despair, I remember that all through history, the way of truth and love have always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they can seem invincible, but in the end, they always fall. Next slide, please. In closing, I'd like to thank everyone in attendance today for taking the time to listen and learn. This is just my very small part to just talk about Islamophobia. After all, knowledge is power and plays a huge part in preventing and combating Islamophobia and other social injustices. If you or any organization is interested in learning more about Islamophobia and other related topics, please feel free to connect with the Canadian Council of Muslim Women. You'll see the information there on the screen. And I'd like to also offer my most sincere thanks to the organizers for arranging this wonderful session. It's been a pleasure hearing my fellow esteemed panelists, much more knowledgeable than myself, and kudos for the important work that you're all doing. I'll now hand this off to the next speaker. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mariam. It was really eye-opening, and I think this is one of the very important subject to talk about and getting more awareness about this. So thank you for your excellent speech. Now we will continue with sorry, just give me a moment. Yeah. So now we will welcome and continue our panel with Dr. Habibur Rahman. Dr. Rahman is a former JSPS fellow from Kobe Pharmaceutical University in Japan, postdoctoral research scholar at Texas A&M University in USA, and currently he is working as an assistant professor of chemistry in the Department of Chemistry, Ranaghat College, West Bengal, India. We'd like to welcome Dr. Habibur Rahman. Mr. Rahman, we cannot hear you. You are muted.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Especially now it is night in India. So I hope, am I audible to all of you?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so thanks for inviting me. Actually, I'm very thankful to the organizer, especially Hoimonti, and also the Ghosh and Dr. De. This is not my topic actually, but organizer when request me to talk something about the insightful Islam, and one of my mates who is very close to me and where I am actually residing presently, so he requested to say something about this particular topic, though I am not the very much, because I see so many panelists, I mean the persons who are involved in this beautiful work. My field of work is something different. However, given the current scenario, I would like to say something about this, the religion and the science, where the topic, most of the topic actually covered by some of the earlier panelists. But I would like to say something different perspective based on the culture, based on the religion and science, and where we are actually. And so I just want to share one screen, and then just 1 minute. Is it visible to all of you?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So this is the current topic, today's topic, Islam and science, which is basically two important aspects of the life, where the phenomena that require a proper understanding of the knowledge. The knowledge based on the comparative religion, study of the uniqueness of religion, and is a phenomena of human concern, which lies actually in the fact, unlike other spheres of human concern. Say, for instance, everybody is interested in religion. This is true from the perspective of life. Everybody, we all. Be a believer or to whom is faith or a matter of ultimate concern. A person who thinks he does not believe and cannot believe in the supernatural feelings, I mean the rulership of this universe. So where we are actually, how these things can be, I mean, how we can jot down this situation, where we are, what is the current scenario, why, what are the activity of the growing field of the science, scenario of the Muslim population, their culture, activity, and what is their role in the today's science. So this is the particular topic that I would like to share openly. So this is, if we say, what is the meaning of the terms religion and science? Then we can simply say that this is nothing. The word seldom, which actually used in 19th century, by the medieval writers like Aquinas, the term religio meant nothing more than the worship or piety. And the term religion later became comprehensive through the works of A.V. Taylor. And if we say the science in its current uses also gained wider engagement in the 19th century. Before then, what do you know? We know that science was called natural philosophy or the experimental philosophy. This is the science actually. In the earlier time is called natural philosophy or experimental philosophy. And division among this science, when intellectual thinks about this perspective, what is science actually, then some of the intellectuals, they define the nature of relations that exist between science and religions based on these three topics. One is the model independent view between the religion and science. Second one is the conflict between religion and science. And the third one is the harmony of religion and science. Third of these three, today I especially will talk about the conflict between religion and science and where the Islam is actually present in that scenario. If you see the conflicts between science and religion, there are so many conflicts. Conflicts of what? Conflicts of significance versus insignificance. Conflicts of evidence versus miracle. Conflicts of evolution versus intelligent design. And there are some other, like if you see the Big Bang versus Genesis, and absolutism versus skepticism. So these are the conflicts. So how we can address these conflicts? What are these conflicts? How we can overcome these conflicts? So I am not going to detail about these conflicts. I'm just going to say something about very important topic, which is covering religion and science in Islam. There are conflicts. There will be more conflicts in future, but where we are actually. Islam with nothing, it's a flourishing of a culture within the religious and geographical structure with keen attention to its scientific and philosophical tradition. That we know. We know and we learn from very childhood these things. But we never think about this perspective, that is where the connection between the Islam and the sciences. The fact that scientific illiteracy is concerned to the modern scholar, if we see the learning technology and the overall growth of the worldwide, the science is far away from this, far away from our community, especially our community. I'm saying this because I have the data. Precise data, if you see the precise data, some of the panelists also mentioned that there are so many Muslims around the world, they are doing great job. No doubt they are doing great job. There are so many Muslims. But if you collect this data, percentage wise, if you see that data is nothing. Out of the population, this data is nothing. So we need more. How we can combat? This is the scenario. So we are talking about the harmony, we are talking about the religion, we are talking about the science, but actual problem in this developing of this field in the Islamic history, if you go back to the history, I'm not the persons like Dr. Amit who knows about this very much than me, I think, because if you go back to the earlier history, ancient or medieval or whatever, the cultural differences between the Islamic society, their behavior, their pattern, and their growth and the science too are almost different. In terms of, because we are the believers of Quran, we know everything and we believe everything what is written in Quran, no doubt. I respect, as a Muslim, I respect these things. But at the same time, we have to also think about our present scenario. Why you are not combat this scenario? Why you are lagging? These things haunting me. So I just want to share this thing. At a glance, if you see there are some other aspects between the science and Hinduism, science and Christianity, comparative study shows that science and Muslim, science and Islam, we are lagging behind. That is my concern actually. So I would like to spread this message to all of my brothers all over the world, not only to the Muslim community, but as this today's lecture is the insightful Islam, so I will only compare the science and the growth of the technology with respect to the Islamic society. The Quran made persistent statement, this is true, about scientific phenomena that were there confirmed by scientific research. For instance, as regard to the structure of embryo, solar system, creation of universe, and many more. Absolutely true. But the connection between science and Islam, it started from from the 7th century. No doubt, because the Islamic revolution, the society, or the as a religion, Islam came up from the 7th century. Sorry. Anyway, but modern science and Islamic world, it says something different in terms of that scientific method, which actually we developed in the current scenario, which historically applied to find solutions to the technical existence of the Islamic religious rituals, which is a characteristics of Islam that sits apart from the other religion. Ritual consideration include a lunar calendar, a definition of prayer times, etc. All these things are there. But modern science and Islamic world are different. At the beginning of the 19th century, if you recall, modern science arrived in the Muslim world, but it was not the science itself that affected Muslim scholars. Rather, it was the transfer of various philosophical currents entangled with the science that had a profound effect on the minds. Like this one, if you see, no, not like that. If you see the theory like the school-like theory, like the positivism and Darwinism that penetrated the Muslim world and dominated its academic circles had a noticeable impact. But again, some of this aspect of the modern science Islamic world, some of the difference of the opinion of many Muslim scholars, they did not accept the theory that was actually originated from 200 or 300 years back. They deny this, someone denied this, someone accepted this, someone tried to assimilate both these ideas and move forward. Some rejected modern science as corrupt foreign thought, considering it is not very good for the Islamic techniques or teachings. And in their view, only remedy for the stagnancy of the societies would be the strict following of Islamic teaching. Some scholars says no. In the Muslim world, science is the only source. It is the only source which enlightenment and advocating the complete adoptions of modern science. The only remedy for the stagnation of Muslim societies would be the mastery of modern science and the replacement of the religious worldview of the scientific world. Some other says, no, the majority of faith, where there is Hindu, Christian, Muslim, Jaini, Parsi, all over the world, some Muslim believers, they think that Muslim scientists try to adopt Islam to finding of modern science. But what is the current? In present scenario, if you see that, finally some Muslim philosophers separated the findings and they found that they portrayed the attempt of Western scientists for the discovery of the secret things, like the scientific knowledge which can reveal certain aspect of the physical world. And they are trying to do something, they are trying to develop the technology, they are trying to develop and understand the bigger things as a whole for their own country as a whole, for the worldwide of this nation. So what they think? They think that it has to be integrated. It has to be integrated for the consistent work, not only for the Muslims, but also for the other brotherhoods, in which levels of knowledge, that is very important. So basic knowledge is very important for understanding the science, understanding the language, and understanding the religion. So that fundamental literacy, to understand the fundamental literacy, to understand the fundamental science, fundamental literacy is very important. And when this theory evolved, then counterfactual trends also you have to carry. You have to think why we are lagging this point, because you see one of my panelists says there are 3 Nobel laureates. You see, this is nothing. This is 0.0000001%. Where our population in world, if you compare the total Muslim population in the world, out of 7 billion, roughly 1.5 billion or 2 billion is the Muslim population. So only 3 Nobel laureates, physics, chemistry, and medicinal part of view. So this is not very significant. I mean, we have the opportunity, we have the land, we have techniques, we have brain, we have everything. But we are not in a position to understand the knowledge. We are not in a position, we are not in a position to accept the things that which is going to be which can change the world dramatically, rather to confine our everything to the Quran. Yes, Quran write everything. Quran verses and everything is true, no doubt. We believe this. But as a nation, as a society, as a man, as a human being, what we have done, that is a very trendy questions nowadays. Because I visited many parts of the globe. I visited many parts of the world. I traveled across around 34 countries. I worked different laboratories as a chemist, not as a Muslim scholar. But what I found, there are some other aspects, obviously, because some panelists says, yes, there are some Islamophobia, there are some haters, there are some other perspective. But the fact is that rational thinking, knowledge gain, building of the structures and evolutions of these is very, very insignificant in our society, especially the Muslim world. We have to think this way. We have to accept this. We have to accept this first, and then we need to jot down this, and we need to think the way how we can overcome this. This is the problem. Problem is that if you see the very earliest one of the Islamic scholar, Abu Amr Asir Kadi, who noted that important technological innovations, once considered to be bizarre, strange, bidah, against the tradition in the Muslim world, were later accepted as standard. So that was true. In correct context, if you see the literature, one of the main reasons the Muslim world held behind in terms of the science, where it is because the printing press was banned. This is a theory. It may be the reason, because when Europe and other parts of the nations, their printing was there, and in times when the Ottoman Sultan issued a decree that anybody caught with a printing press shall be executed for heresy, and anybody who owns a printed book shall basically be thrown out into jail. I don't know the authenticity of the quotation, but I found this in net. And for 350 years, when Europe is printing, when Descartes is printing, when Galileo is printing, when Newton is printing, the only way you can get a copy of any book in the Arab world is to go and handwrite it yourself. That was, I don't know. I mean, you have to accept, because science is not the the father of this science is not the European or American. That was not their property. But you have not entangled, you have not envisioned into that perspective of the life. So that is the problem. I mean, that is the problem. We have to accept this problem. Now, after that, we accept this printing. After that, we try to penetrate into that society to play the game into the level, but time actually not permitted us, because we almost 350 years, it is not a matter of joke. And what do we see? We see the current data. This is the data.
Mr. Raman, please unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Yeah, you got muted accidentally. Yeah, just unmute. You can unmute.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Just a minute. Yeah. So what is the problem? I mean, if you see the data, I mean, this data I collected from the books and internets. I don't know the authenticity of data, but somewhere I feel that this data has the accuracy. So I just want to share this data with all of my friends. There are conflicts, of course, but today's world, where the basic science, fundamental science is increasing, you see 20 representative YC countries spent only 0.3% of their overall gross domestic product on scientific research between 1996 to 2003. Just 1/7 of global average of 2.36%. This is nothing. Muslim countries also have fewer than 10 scientists, engineers and technicians per 1,000 of the population, compared with the world average of 40 and 140 for the developed world. And the Royal Society of Atlas of Islamic World Science, this is their data, they said that even a country, especially the Arab world, produced a total 13,444 scientific publication in 2005 to 2000. In between, that is in 15 years, they published 13,440 journals. Fewer than the journal achieved by only Harvard University alone. Harvard alone published 15,000 publications in 15 years, where total Arab world published only 13,000 journals. So we are lagging also in fundamental science. We have to accept this challenge, because this is true somewhere. I also found this true. Because we are not good at the basic science. We are not developing our culture into the level. We are not trying. That is our problem also. We have to address our problem. And given the current scenario, in a league table compiled in 2006 by the US National Science Board of the world's top 45 nations, ranked by their RCI in physics, only 2 YC countries even registered: Turkey with 0.3% and Iran with 0.484. And only the later shows a marked improvement between 1995 and 2003. So these are the data. We have to accept this data. 2013 survey, it is not my survey, a Muslim perspective survey. Different Muslim majority countries by the Pew Research Center based on the America. We have to acknowledge someone. They can recognize who is good, who is best, and who is worst. So Pew Research Center, he answered to the question, is there a conflict between science and religion? Varied by country? And of course, yes, they said there are certain things. They said that in Middle East and North Africa, few agreed: Morocco 18%, Egypt 16%, Iraq 15%, Jordan 15%, and Palestinian territories 14%. More agreed in Albania 57%. Turkey 40%, Lebanon 53%, and Tunisia 42%. Survey based on what? Survey based on, is there a conflict between science and religion? So even now we are also don't understand where is the conflict. We are questioning each other. We are wasting our time to understand the conflict between science and Islam. But we are not trying to develop the fundamentals. That is the problem. So we have to address this problem. Now, when we are addressing the problem, then criticism will be there. So we have to accept this criticism as well. What kind of criticism? Enthusiasts of the movement argue that among the miracles found in the Quran are everything from relativity, quantum mechanics, Big Bang, black holes, pulsar, genetics, embryology, modern geology, thermodynamics, even the laser and hydrogen fuel cell. Then, as of 2008, both Muslim and non-Muslim have disputed whether there is actually scientific miracles in the Quran. Yes, indeed. There are certain things. There are many things even written in the Quran, which are actually the miracles. And later the scientists, they prove that these things happens. But this does not justify that being a Muslim, I have to accept this one. Whoa, it is written in the Quran, so we are superior. Not like that. Muslim, non-Muslims, everybody has to work together. It is not the job of a Muslim or non-Muslim. It is the job of the humankind. They have to learn. They have to understand the fundamentals and develop as a whole the totality, the comprehensive growth of the fundamental science as a whole. So we have to understand this thing. And the other critics, like the Pakistani theoretical physicist Parvez Khudboi, who writes, the problem with such claims to ownership is that they lack an explanation for why quantum mechanics, molecular genetics had to have a discovery elsewhere, nor is any kind of testable prediction ever made. No reason is offered to us why antibiotic, aspirin, steam engines, electricity, aircraft, or computers were not first invented by Muslims. But even to ask such question is considered offensive. That is the problem in our society. When you ask something, then you are in different zone. That is not good. You have to accept this thing. Yes. How we can accept this? How we can challenge these things? How we can develop our own society in a way so that everybody can say that, no, you develop this theory. You are the master. We respect you. Not like that. Because we believe in a way so that we cannot do anything. So our belief, you believe, and then you act. But we are not acting, we only believe. This is the problem. And the second one, critics also argued, based on this theory, while it is generally agreed the Quran contains many verses proclaiming the wonders of nature, then it requires a considerable mental gymnastic and distortion to find scientific facts or theories in these verses. That Quran is the source of guidance, it is true. We blindly believe this in the right faith and the righteous action. But the idea that it contained all knowledge, including scientific knowledge, has not been mainstream view among Muslim scholars. That is my point. Because science is ever changing. It is not constant. In history, there is a term that is change is the constant. So in science, there is also such kind of change. And science, there is a such kind of theory. That is, it is ever changing. It is not constant. And we are constant. We are not developing. That is the problem. So cooperation revolution, overturning the polemic models of the universe, the Einstein general theory of relativity, Newtonian mechanism, everything. Stephen Hawking developed a theory based on this string theory. We don't understand the quantums. But we say, though these things is not written in Holy Book, we cannot throw this chapter. Not like that. We have to understand what is quantum. Why you are not understanding these things? That is the problem in our society and as a whole. I am not talking about the as a whole, but percentage-wise data. If you calculate the percentage-wise data, then you will see the rigorous drop down of this overall activity, scientific activity in the Islamic society as a whole. So critics also argue that some classical beliefs based on the interpretation of the Quran have been abandoned following the introduction of modern technology. This was what Muslims believed for centuries. Like the ultrasound technology, I will not going to detail into this term, because this is a very time constraint topic. I just want to conclude this session by observing few facts and findings. Is there a brighter future ahead for science in the Islamic world? That is the question we need to address. From this discussion, it is clear that Islamic countries, even the Muslims, are far behind in the field of scientific research. I'm talking about the fundamental science, not about the technology development. You are an engineer, you can develop a technology, but if you don't understand physics accurately, you cannot develop the technology. So you can build industry, not an idea. Now, this is not the fundamental science. I'm talking about to create a molecule, to create. You see any scientist in the world who develop neutron, proton, like X-ray, gamma ray, whatever the things? No, because in chapters you see, no, nil, zero. Maybe 2 or 3 examples are there. So I'm talking about the fundamental science. That the countries and Muslim, because being a Muslim, I have to address this problem to my colleagues, to my brothers and to my sisters, to worldwide. That is, it is wrong to think that Islam as a religion is solely responsible. This is not true. One problem is too many Muslims see modern science as a secular, even atheist. This is the problem. Western construct. This is the problem. They have forgotten that many wonderful contributions made by the Muslim scholar during height of its golden age. But we have not carried that one. This is also another problem. So what do we have to do? The quest for this question, is there a brighter future ahead for science in the Islamic world? Of course, scientific research, to my mind, what I feel, and I just want to share with you. There are adequate financial resources, but to compete in the world stage requires more than that. The whole infrastructure of the research environment needs to be addressed, from laboratory technician to the exercise of real intellectuals. Freedom on the part of the scientist and a healthy skepticism and courage to question experimental results that will govern, that will precisely elaborate the fundamental science. The cultural renaissance leading to a knowledge-based society, which is urgently required if the Muslim world is to accept and embrace the spirit of curiosity that drives humankind to try to understand nature, whether it is to marvel at the divine creation or just to know how and why things are the way they are. I think we can do this. With this hope, I just want to conclude this session, because hope is the best thing, maybe the good thing, and no good thing ever dies. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was really informative, and I really wanted to, hold a discussion of Islam and science since a long time. I've approached many people, and thanks to Hemanti for inviting you to the panel. We feel Islam is very, very scientific, very scientific. So it was very informative, lovely speech by you. Thank you to all of you for the wonderful, panel and the wonderful speeches, wonderful information which you have given today. You have enlightened us in many ways. It's midnight in India. I'm hosting it from India. Actually, I'm on a vacation and for work in India. I live in Ottawa, but I really wanted to host this panel since a long time, because we live in this planet Earth, right? There should be peace and harmony amongst all religions, all cultures, and all faith all the time. And Islam has been misinterpreted by people, by different cultures, because they don't know. They don't know. They haven't read. They do not have the knowledge. So I wanted to hold, but this is just, you can say, a drop in the ocean. We have so much to discuss about Islam. So much to discuss. That's what I feel. Let us move on with this beautiful culture and way of life. And let us respect each other. Let us respect each other. Let us live in a world which has peace and harmony. And actually, God made, that's what I told in my introductory speech, God made different communities because God wanted to test us. But we should not fight amongst ourselves. We should not fight. Fighting, hating, Islamophobia is something which is uncalled for. So we do not support Islamophobia. We have to prevent Islamophobia. People of all cultures, all faiths should come together to prevent Islamophobia, to promote multiculturalism and multi-faith, interfaith culture and respect. That's what I feel myself. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Thank you for all of you who watched.
Yep, thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, Professor Amit Dey, if you're there, you should send me an email.
Of course, of course. I have your email. You know, Hoymonti shared your email.
Yes, I would like to.
We should stay connected, and we should all promote multicultural faith and multiculturalism together. No fighting, no hatred, nothing.
Thank you.
We're all human beings. That's what I feel.
Good night from India.
Good night. And good afternoon to all the Canadians and the people from US.
Thank you so much.
Allah Hafiz.